Is anger inherently destructive, a force to be suppressed and avoided at all costs? What if it's a misunderstood emotion, carrying a hidden power we've been taught to ignore? What if this power, when understood and channeled correctly, could be the key to unlocking profound personal growth? This isn't just about abstract emotional theory. It's about the very real potential for suppressed anger to manifest as anxiety, depression, or even chronic physical pain. In fact, studies show a significant correlation between unresolved anger and a weakened immune system, demonstrating that what we bury inside can resurface in ways that diminish our quality of life. Understanding how to manage and harness anger, therefore, becomes not just a matter of emotional well-being, but a crucial element of overall health. We've all been taught, in varying degrees, to suppress or feel ashamed of our anger, often from a young age. This societal conditioning can lead to internal conflict, as we try to conform to expectations of emotional stoicism, particularly in certain cultures or professions. Nietzsche, however, identified a particularly destructive form of suppressed anger called ressentiment, a resentment-fueled state of bitterness and inaction that festers within us, hindering our personal growth and poisoning our outlook on the world. Have you ever felt stuck in a cycle of resentment, unable to move forward because of past hurts or perceived injustices? By the end of this video, you'll not only understand the destructive potential of anger and the insidious nature of ressentiment, but also discover how to transform anger into a catalyst for self-mastery and personal evolution. We'll explore Nietzsche's core concepts, including the will to power and self-overcoming, Übermensch, revealing how these seemingly abstract ideas can be practically applied to your own life to unlock hidden potential. Get ready for a profound insight into the true nature of anger and its unexpected capacity for positive change. You might be thinking that anger is simply a bad emotion that should be avoided or quickly extinguished, and that's perfectly understandable given the potential for destructive outbursts and the negative consequences we often associate with it. It's also understandable if you feel skeptical about the possibility of transforming such a volatile emotion into something positive and constructive, especially if you've been taught to suppress your feelings your entire life. This is about understanding, not judgment. We're here to explore how to work with our emotions, not against them, and to discover a path towards self-mastery that embraces the full spectrum of the human experience. As we work to understand the true power of anger, we need to explore how societal norms and expectations may be holding us back from unlocking its potential. But how can we move beyond these ingrained beliefs and tap into anger as a force for positive change? The answer, as Nietzsche would suggest, lies in a radical revaluation of values, a concept that challenges everything we think we know about good and bad. Nietzsche believed that traditional morality, often rooted in religious or societal dogma, was a construct designed to control and suppress the individual will. He argued that we must question all established values and create our own, based on our own lived experiences and our own understanding of the world. This includes questioning the traditional moralistic view of emotions as inherently good or bad. Think about it, we're often taught to suppress negative emotions like anger, while promoting positive ones like happiness and contentment. But what if this binary is a false one, preventing us from fully understanding ourselves? Nietzsche urged us to embrace our shadow self, including those emotions we've been taught to reject, because within them lies untapped energy and potential. This isn't a call for unrestrained expression, but for understanding the energy behind the emotion and recognizing it as a vital part of our being. The dangers of repressing emotions are well documented. Psychological studies consistently show a link between suppressed anger and a range of mental and physical health problems, from anxiety and depression to chronic pain and cardiovascular disease. For example, a study published in the Journal of Behavioral Medicine found that individuals who habitually suppress their anger have a significantly higher risk of developing hypertension. In contrast, consider historical figures like the suffragettes, who, fueled by their anger at systemic injustice, challenged societal norms and fought for their right to vote. Or think of abolitionists who, driven by righteous anger at the institution of slavery, risked their lives to fight for the freedom of enslaved people. These individuals didn't suppress their anger. They channeled it into a powerful force for social change. Isn't it clear that there is power in anger? The implication of reevaluating anger is profound. It suggests that we have the power to take control of our lives and act with more authenticity. If anger is just a signal, as we're suggesting, what is it trying to tell you? What boundaries are being crossed? What injustices are you tolerating? Traditional values might be holding you back from embracing your full potential, from standing up for what you believe in, and from living a life that is truly aligned with your values. Consider how societal expectations might be silencing your anger, preventing you from recognizing your own needs and desires. Are you living a life that is true to yourself, or are you simply conforming to what others expect of you? This brings us to a crucial question. How can we distinguish between destructive ressentiment, that poisonous bitterness that eats away at our soul, and the constructive use of anger that empowers us to create change? Nietzsche's concept of ressentiment goes beyond simple anger. It's a specific kind of resentment, born from a sense of powerlessness and a desire for revenge. It's the anger of the slave, Nietzsche argued, directed at the master, but ultimately turning inward and poisoning the soul. But empowering anger, on the other hand, is a force for change, a catalyst for action, and a pathway to self-mastery. The key difference lies in the direction of the energy. Ressentiment dwells on past grievances, while empowering anger propels us forward. Ressentiment is characterized by bitterness, resentment, and a sense of powerlessness. It's the feeling of being wronged, of being unable to retaliate, and of constantly replaying the injustice in your mind. Empowering anger, conversely, involves taking action and asserting oneself. It's the feeling of I've been wronged, and I'm going to do something about it. Ressentiment keeps individuals stuck in the past, consumed by negativity and self-pity, while empowering anger propels them forward, driving them to create a better future. Think of the character of Hamlet, consumed by his resentment towards Claudius, ultimately leading to his own destruction and the deaths of those around him. He was stuck in the past. Now contrast that with someone like Martin Luther King Jr., who, fueled by his anger at racial injustice, channeled that anger into a nonviolent movement that transformed American society. He took action. The psychological difference between ressentiment and empowering anger lies in the role of self-pity versus self-efficacy. Ressentiment is rooted in a victim mentality, a belief that one is helpless and at the mercy of external forces. Empowering anger, on the other hand, is fueled by a sense of self-efficacy, a belief that one has the power to change their circumstances. Consider your own life. Are there instances where you might be harboring ressentiment instead of using your anger constructively? Are you dwelling on past hurts, replaying them in your mind, and feeling helpless to change the situation? Or are you using your anger as a catalyst for action, taking steps to assert yourself, set boundaries, and create a better future? But how do we transform ressentiment into empowering anger, breaking free from the cycles of negativity and self-pity? What concrete strategies can we use to harness the power of anger for positive change? Based on Nietzschean principles, we can develop practical strategies for managing anger and channeling it constructively. This isn't about suppressing anger, but about understanding it, redirecting its energy, and using it as a tool for self-overcoming. The most essential element is self-awareness, recognizing the triggers that spark your anger and understanding the underlying needs and desires that are being threatened. There are several techniques that you can practice. One powerful technique is journaling, which allows you to explore your anger in a safe and private space, to identify its root causes, and to develop strategies for managing it. Creative expression, such as painting, writing, or music, can provide an outlet for releasing pent-up anger and transforming it into something beautiful and meaningful. Physical activity, such as running, swimming, or weightlifting, can help to reduce stress, release tension, and channel anger into a productive activity. And finally, assertiveness training can help you to set healthy boundaries, communicate your needs effectively, and stand up for yourself without resorting to aggression. For example, research has shown that journaling can significantly reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression, while physical activity has been proven to lower blood pressure and improve mood. Link all these ideas back to Nietzsche's ideas about self-overcoming and the will to power. By using these strategies, we can break free from cycles of ressentiment and empower ourselves to take control of our lives. This is an ongoing process of self-discovery and self-improvement, a journey of self-overcoming that requires commitment, patience, and a willingness to confront our own shadow self. Think about how you are using these techniques in your daily life, or how you could use them. Are you journaling to explore your anger? Are you expressing yourself creatively? Are you engaging in physical activity to release tension? Are you setting healthy boundaries and communicating your needs effectively? Even with these strategies in place, challenges and setbacks are inevitable. Transforming anger is not always easy, and there will be times when you stumble, when you fall back into old patterns, and when you feel overwhelmed by negativity. So how do we overcome these inevitable obstacles and maintain our momentum on the path to self-mastery? Nietzsche believed in embracing the struggle, in viewing challenges as opportunities for growth, and in finding strength in adversity. He famously said, "That which does not kill us makes us stronger." This doesn't mean seeking out suffering, but it does mean accepting that life is full of challenges, and that it is through overcoming these challenges that we grow and evolve. A critical component of this is self-compassion and forgiveness. Think of individuals like Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in prison for his activism against apartheid, yet emerged with a message of forgiveness and reconciliation. Or consider Viktor Frankl, who survived the horrors of the Holocaust and went on to develop logotherapy, a form of psychotherapy that emphasizes the importance of finding meaning in suffering. These individuals faced unimaginable challenges in transforming their anger, yet they ultimately succeeded through perseverance and self-compassion. Social support and professional guidance can also play a crucial role in overcoming these challenges. Talking to a therapist, joining a support group, or simply confiding in a trusted friend or family member can provide you with the emotional support and practical advice you need to stay on track. Viewers can apply these principles to their own lives by cultivating self-belief and a willingness to learn from mistakes. Remember that setbacks are not failures, but opportunities for growth. Treat yourself with kindness and compassion, and forgive yourself for any missteps you may make along the way. And always remember that anger can be a powerful force for positive change when understood and channeled correctly. Think back to the initial question we posed at the start of this video. Is anger inherently destructive? Now, after exploring Nietzsche's philosophy and practical strategies for managing anger, how does your answer differ? And as we prepare to conclude, stay with me, because the most profound insight into the nature of anger and its potential for personal growth is yet to come. But is simply recognizing our anger and developing strategies enough? Or is there a deeper force at play, something that can truly unleash the transformative power of this emotion? This leads us to Nietzsche's concept of the will to power, a driving force that, when understood and harnessed, can turn anger into the fuel for self-overcoming. It's a concept that challenges our common assumptions about what motivates us and what we are capable of achieving. Nietzsche's will to power is often misunderstood as a desire for domination or control over others. However, at its core, it's the fundamental drive within each of us to expand our capacities, overcome challenges, and create meaning in our lives. It's not about exerting power over others, but about mastering oneself. Think of it as the force that compels a plant to grow towards the sunlight, even when faced with obstacles. Or consider the artist who relentlessly pursues their vision, despite facing rejection and criticism. It's the intrinsic motivation that pushes us to become more, to achieve more, and to leave our mark on the world. Suppressing your anger actually stifles your will to power, cutting you off from a vital source of energy and motivation. It's like putting a lid on a boiling pot, preventing the steam from escaping and driving a turbine. Is it possible that what we perceive as limitations are merely suppressed emotions, untapped reserves of power waiting to be unleashed? The will to power manifests in our capacity to assert our boundaries, challenge injustices, and express our creative visions. It involves embracing all emotions, including anger, as sources of energy and motivation. But it's crucial to differentiate between destructive and constructive expressions of this power. Destructive expressions might involve aggression, domination, or the pursuit of selfish desires at the expense of others. Constructive expressions, on the other hand, involve self-improvement, creativity, and the pursuit of goals that benefit both oneself and others. Consider the difference between a dictator who uses fear and violence to maintain control and an entrepreneur who channels their frustration with the status quo into creating a groundbreaking product or service. Or think of the difference between someone who lashes out in anger and someone who uses that same energy to fuel their training for a marathon. Think about historical figures like Beethoven, who, despite facing progressive hearing loss, channeled his inner turmoil and frustration into some of the most powerful and moving music ever created. His anger at his condition didn't destroy him, it fueled his creative fire. Or consider someone like Susan B. Anthony, who, fueled by her anger at the systemic denial of women's rights, dedicated her life to fighting for equality and social justice. Contrast these examples with individuals who succumb to self-pity or resentment, allowing their will to power to atrophy. Think of the character of Miss Havisham in Dickens' Great Expectations, consumed by her bitterness and unable to move forward after being jilted at the altar. Her anger became a prison, trapping her in the past and preventing her from realizing her potential. So how can we consciously cultivate our will to power and avoid the pitfalls of ressentiment? The key lies in redirecting the energy of anger towards achieving goals and creating a more meaningful life. What goals are you afraid to pursue because of fear or self-doubt? How can anger be used to overcome these obstacles? Perhaps you're afraid to start that business you've always dreamed of, fearing failure or rejection. Or maybe you're stuck in a dead-end job, but you're afraid to take the leap and pursue a more fulfilling career. In these situations, anger can be a powerful catalyst, pushing you to break free from your comfort zone and take action. Embracing challenges and setbacks actually strengthens the will to power. Each time you overcome an obstacle, you build resilience and confidence, further fueling your drive to achieve your goals. But how exactly can one cultivate this will to power and constructively channel their anger in their day-to-day lives? This brings us to the practical. What concrete steps can we take to cultivate the will to power and channel anger constructively in our everyday lives? Moving beyond theoretical concepts, the real key is to put these ideas into action. We've discussed strategies like journaling, creative expression, physical activity, and assertiveness training. but how can we leverage them to strengthen our will to power? Each of these techniques serves as a means of cultivating the will to power by providing outlets for understanding, redirecting, and expressing anger. Journaling helps you identify triggers, understand your emotions, and develop strategies for managing anger. Creative expression allows you to channel anger into art, music, writing, or other creative outlets, transforming it into something beautiful and meaningful. Physical activity helps release pent-up energy and reduce stress, providing a healthy and productive way to channel your aggression. Assertiveness training helps you set healthy boundaries and express your needs effectively, empowering you to stand up for yourself without resorting to violence or aggression. Remember, these techniques are not about suppressing anger, but about understanding it and redirecting its energy. Consider the following. Imagine you're constantly feeling overlooked at work. Journaling could help you identify the specific situations that trigger your anger and understand the underlying needs that are not being met, like recognition or respect. Perhaps you discover a pattern of being interrupted in meetings or having your ideas dismissed. Armed with this awareness, you can then use assertiveness training to develop strategies for communicating your needs more effectively, such as speaking up more confidently in meetings or requesting a formal performance review. Alternatively, you could channel your frustration into a creative project, like writing a blog post about your experiences or creating a piece of art that expresses your feelings. A study published in the Journal of Positive Psychology found that engaging in creative activities can significantly reduce feelings of anger and improve overall well-being. And finally, consider that physical activity may help to reduce stress and improve your mood, making you better equipped to handle difficult situations at work. So which of these techniques resonate most with you, and how can you incorporate them into your daily routine to cultivate your will to power? By actively engaging with these techniques, we can take control of our lives and achieve our goals, strengthening our will to power. What would your life be like if you were able to manage your anger more effectively? How would your relationships improve? What new opportunities would open up? Cultivating your will to power can help you achieve goals you never thought possible, unlocking hidden reserves of strength and resilience. But what happens when you inevitably face setbacks and challenges on this path of self-improvement? How do you maintain momentum and avoid burnout when the going gets tough? The truth is, the path of self-improvement is rarely smooth. Maintaining momentum and avoiding burnout requires a shift in perspective, a recognition that setbacks are inevitable and that self-compassion is essential. We must learn to embrace the challenges along the way, viewing them not as roadblocks, but as opportunities for growth. Connect this back to Nietzsche's idea of eternal recurrence, suggesting that one should live each day as if it will be repeated endlessly, thus making each moment meaningful. Self-compassion plays a crucial role in overcoming setbacks and maintaining motivation. It involves treating yourself with kindness, understanding, and acceptance, especially when you're struggling or feeling inadequate. Instead of beating yourself up for making mistakes, you acknowledge your imperfections and offer yourself the same compassion you would offer a friend. Setting realistic goals and celebrating small victories is equally important. Avoid setting unrealistic expectations that are impossible to achieve, as this can lead to discouragement and burnout. Instead, break down your goals into smaller, more manageable steps and celebrate each milestone along the way. Rest, recreation, and social connection are also essential for preventing burnout. Make sure to prioritize self-care activities that help you relax and recharge, such as spending time in nature, reading a book, or listening to music. Remember, even Nietzsche himself emphasized the importance of solitude and reflection for cultivating one's inner strength. Think of individuals like J.K. Rowling, who faced numerous rejections before finally publishing Harry Potter, or Oprah Winfrey, who was fired from her first television job, but went on to become one of the most successful media moguls in the world. They overcame these setbacks and found monumental success by having self-compassion and realistic expectations. So what steps can you take to prevent burnout and maintain momentum on your path of self-improvement? How can you cultivate self-compassion and embrace setbacks as opportunities for growth? How will you ensure that you stay on track even when facing setbacks and challenges? As we move toward our conclusion, stay with me, because we are about to reach a profound insight into how to use our natural and inevitable anger to improve ourselves and the world. But what if the very emotion we've been taught to suppress, the one that simmers beneath the surface, is not a destructive force at all, but a vital signal, a moral compass pointing us towards truth and justice? Let's challenge that right now by asking this. Is it possible that anger, far from being irrational or unjustified, is actually a sign that our values or boundaries are being violated, a call to action from our deepest selves? This brings us to a radical reframing of anger, one that views it not as a flaw to be eradicated, but as essential information, a tool for navigating the complexities of life. Now, consider that anger can be a natural and healthy response to injustice, disrespect, or betrayal. When someone violates our boundaries, attacks our values, or treats us unfairly, anger arises as a signal that something is wrong. It's a primal urge to protect ourselves and those we care about. But what is crucial is understanding the difference between anger that is proportionate to the situation and anger that is excessive or misplaced. A measured response to a clear injustice can be a powerful force for change, while uncontrolled rage can be destructive and self-defeating. Ultimately, that compass will guide you to take action to self-correct when needed. But what happens when that compass is ignored, when that internal signal is silenced? Think about historical figures who were fueled by their anger to fight oppression and bring about justice. Consider Martin Luther Jr., King Jr., whose righteous anger at racial injustice propelled the civil rights movement, or Nelson Mandela, whose decades of imprisonment only strengthened his resolve to dismantle apartheid. These individuals didn't suppress their anger. They channeled it into a powerful force for positive change, inspiring millions to stand up for what is right. In his book, Stride Toward Freedom, King writes of his own struggle with anger and hatred, and how he ultimately chose the path of nonviolent resistance, transforming his anger into a force for love and reconciliation. So why is it that some people are able to harness their anger for good, while others succumb to its destructive potential? Ask yourself this. In what situations is anger a sign that your boundaries are being crossed or your values are being violated? How can you use anger to identify and address injustices in your own life and in the world around you? Perhaps you find yourself constantly feeling resentful towards a friend who consistently takes advantage of your generosity. Or maybe you're outraged by the injustices you see in the news, but feel powerless to do anything about them. What does that anger ultimately suggest? Is it a sign that you need to set firmer boundaries with your friend? Or that you need to get involved in a cause you care about? Now, if anger is indeed a moral compass, how do we manage the intensity of its signal, preventing it from overwhelming us and leading to destructive actions? This brings us to the art of controlled expression, a way to manage the intensity of anger and prevent it from becoming destructive. This is self-mastery, the idea that true power lies in controlling one's emotions, not being controlled by them. We've already discussed some things, like destructive anger, constructive anger, and the initial problem posed. But controlled expression is really the intelligent redirection of your emotional response. But how does one achieve this self-mastery, especially when anger feels like an uncontrollable fire? Controlled expression involves acknowledging and validating one's anger while also choosing how to express it in a healthy and constructive way. It's about recognizing the emotion, understanding its source, and then consciously deciding how to respond. This might involve techniques such as deep breathing, mindfulness, and assertive communication. Deep breathing can help calm the nervous system and reduce the intensity of the emotional response. Mindfulness can help you observe your anger without getting swept away by it. Assertive communication allows you to express your needs and feelings clearly and respectfully, without resorting to aggression or defensiveness. Remember that true power is in control and intelligent redirection. But is there any evidence to suggest that these techniques actually work? Consider individuals who have successfully managed their anger through controlled expression. Think of CEOs who have been able to constructively handle angry employees, or teachers who have constructively worked with frustrated students. A study published in the Journal of Consulting and Clinical Psychology found that individuals who practiced mindfulness-based interventions showed significant reductions in anger and aggression. These techniques can reduce stress, improve communication, and resolve conflicts more effectively. But does this mean suppressing anger is the key to success? Think about what techniques you can use to manage the intensity of your anger and express it in a healthy and constructive way. How can you use assertive communication to set boundaries and resolve conflicts effectively? What about the coworker who constantly makes snide remarks, or the family member who always criticizes your choices? How can you respond to these situations without losing your temper or resorting to passive-aggressive behavior? What if you can't let go of past hurts? This leads us to the power of forgiveness, a way to release anger and move forward from past hurts. What is forgiveness, really, if not a way of freeing oneself from the grip of the past? Many think forgiveness is about condoning wrongdoing or forgetting what happened, but let's challenge that assumption right now. Connect this back to Nietzsche's idea of self-overcoming, suggesting that forgiveness is about freeing oneself from the grip of the past. Can forgiveness truly liberate us from the chains of resentment? Forgiveness is not about condoning the actions of others, but about releasing the emotional attachment to past hurts. It's about accepting what happened, acknowledging the pain, and then choosing to let go of the anger and resentment that are holding you back. This doesn't mean forgetting the past, but it does mean refusing to let it define your present or future. It's a process, not an event, and it requires courage, compassion, and a willingness to heal. What are the benefits? Consider individuals who have found peace and healing through forgiveness, even in the face of terrible injustices. Think of Holocaust survivors who forgave their tormentors, or families of murder victims who forgave the perpetrators. These individuals didn't condone the actions of those who harmed them, but they chose to release the anger and resentment that were consuming them, and they found a path towards healing and peace. Nelson Mandela is a great example of forgiveness, in that he preached peace and forgiveness for all those who oppressed him, even after he was released. Forgiveness isn't always easy, and for some, it is something that is not in the realm of possibility. So what hurts are you holding on to from the past, and how can you begin the process of forgiveness? How can you use forgiveness to create more positive and fulfilling relationships? What about the parent who abandoned you as a child, or the partner who betrayed your trust, or the friend who spread rumors behind your back? What is something holding you back? As we approach the conclusion of our exploration, stay tuned, because we're about to uncover a profound insight into the nature of anger and its potential for personal growth. This brings us to assertiveness as a virtue, but let's challenge the common misconception that assertiveness is merely aggression in disguise. Is it possible that assertiveness, far from being a form of aggression, is actually a courageous act of self-respect? A necessary skill for setting and maintaining healthy boundaries that protect our well-being. Connect this back to Nietzsche's emphasis on individual strength and self-affirmation, recognizing that true strength lies not in dominating others, but in standing up for oneself with clarity and conviction. Remember that anger we talked about earlier. Is it often a signal that our boundaries are being violated? Now, consider assertiveness as the ability to express one's needs and opinions clearly and respectfully, without infringing on the rights of others. It's about finding a balance between passivity, where one's own needs are sacrificed, and aggression, where the needs of others are disregarded. Assertiveness is not about being combative, but about advocating for oneself in a way that honors both one's own needs and the needs of others. Think of it as a form of self-advocacy, a way of ensuring that your voice is heard and your needs are met, while also respecting the rights and perspectives of those around you. But where do we draw the line? Think about situations where assertiveness is essential for protecting one's boundaries and maintaining healthy relationships. Consider the example of a person being constantly asked to take on extra work by their colleagues, leading to burnout and resentment. Or a person who is consistently interrupted and talked over in conversations, feeling devalued and unheard. In contrast, think about individuals who are able to assert themselves effectively, setting clear boundaries and communicating their needs with confidence and respect, cultivating healthier, more fulfilling relationships. A study published in the Journal of Applied Psychology found that assertiveness training can significantly increase self-esteem, reduce stress, and improve communication skills. But what does it all mean? Ask yourself this. In what situations do you struggle to assert yourself, and what are the consequences? How would your life change if you were able to say no more often and set healthier boundaries? Why is it so difficult to say no? Is it fear of rejection, fear of conflict, or a deep-seated belief that your needs are less important than those of others? And now consider if the real reason is that your opinion isn't truly valued. As we continue, consider how to go beyond a simple response and move towards a more proactive stance. This leads us to transcending victimhood, but let's challenge the assumption that we are simply passive recipients of fate, powerless to change our circumstances. Is it possible that, while we cannot always control what happens to us, we can control how we respond, choosing to rise above adversity and create a life of meaning and purpose? Connect this to Nietzsche's idea of amor fati, love of fate, suggesting that we should embrace all aspects of our lives, including the difficult ones. Think back to ressentiment, where the negativity just keeps building. Now, consider that transcending victimhood involves reframing negative experiences, focusing on what we can learn from them, and taking proactive steps to improve our lives. It's about cultivating self-compassion, recognizing that we are all imperfect and deserving of kindness, and building resilience, the ability to bounce back from adversity. Think of it as a process of reclaiming your power, of refusing to be defined by your past and choosing to create a brighter future. But isn't that easier said than done? Think about the power dynamic involved in victimhood and the steps needed to take back control. Consider individuals who have overcome significant adversity by transcending victimhood, transforming trauma into fuel for personal growth and positive change. Think of Viktor Frankl, who survived the Holocaust and developed his theory of logotherapy, emphasizing the importance of finding meaning in suffering. Or Malala Yousafzai, who was shot by the Taliban for advocating for girls' education and went on to become a global champion for human rights. A study published in the Journal of Traumatic Stress found that individuals who engage in cognitive reframing and develop a growth mindset are better able to cope with trauma and build resilience. Now, how does it apply to you? So, what negative experiences are you holding onto from the past, and how can you reframe them in a more empowering way? How can you cultivate self-compassion and resilience to overcome future challenges? Is it a past relationship that ended badly, or a childhood trauma that continues to haunt you, or a series of setbacks that have left you feeling defeated? As we continue, consider how we can find new ways of working through issues. Stay tuned for more. This brings us to embracing conflict, but let's challenge the conventional wisdom that conflict should be avoided at all costs. Is it possible that conflict, far from being a destructive force, can actually be a valuable opportunity for growth and self-discovery, a crucible in which we forge stronger relationships and develop new skills? Connect this to Nietzsche's emphasis on embracing challenges and overcoming obstacles, recognizing that it is through struggle that we become stronger. And consider our earlier discussion of assertiveness. Does healthy conflict resolution require the ability to express one's needs and opinions assertively? Now consider that conflict can be a crucible for growth, forcing us to confront our own limitations, clarify our values, and develop new skills. It's about approaching conflict with curiosity, seeking to understand the other person's perspective, and empathy, recognizing their feelings and needs. Think of it as a process of mutual learning and growth, where both parties can emerge stronger and more resilient. But what if conflict is simply too painful? Think about situations where conflict has led to positive outcomes, such as improved relationships, innovative solutions, and personal growth. Consider the example of a couple who learns to communicate more effectively through conflict resolution, strengthening their bond and deepening their understanding of each other. Or a team that generates innovative ideas through constructive debate and disagreement, leading to better products and services. A study published in the Journal of Conflict Resolution found that conflict resolution training can significantly improve communication skills, reduce aggression, and foster more collaborative relationships. How can you leverage conflicts in your life? How do you typically respond to conflict, and what are the consequences? How can you approach conflict with more curiosity, empathy, and a willingness to learn? Is it with defensiveness, aggression, or avoidance? What if you shifted your perspective, viewing conflict as an opportunity for growth and connection, rather than a threat to be feared? In the next section, as we reach our conclusion, we will summarize key takeaways and offer a final, profound insight into the nature of anger and its potential for personal growth. The presentation of different facets of Nietzsche's ideas will give you a rounded picture that will empower you to change your life. Stay with me. Let's delve into the often underestimated power of boundaries. Isn't it curious how often we prioritize the comfort of others over our own well-being, tiptoeing around their sensitivities while neglecting our own needs? Challenge the idea that setting boundaries is selfish or unkind. Consider that boundary violations trigger anger, acting as a vital signal that our personal, moral territory is being encroached upon. Boundaries are not walls. They are the lines that define where you begin and another person ends. Now, consider that boundaries are the invisible lines we draw to protect our physical, emotional, intellectual, and material well-being. Physical boundaries define our personal space and physical comfort. Emotional boundaries protect our feelings and prevent emotional dumping. Intellectual boundaries safeguard our thoughts and opinions from undue influence. And material boundaries define our possessions and resources. Unhealthy boundaries manifest as either rigid walls that isolate us from intimacy or porous membranes that allow others to drain our energy and violate our sense of self. Healthy boundaries, on the other hand, are flexible and permeable, allowing for connection and intimacy while still protecting our individual needs and values. Think of boundaries as the framework for a healthy, sustainable life. Think about common boundary violations in everyday life and their emotional consequences. Imagine a family member constantly criticizing your choices, a colleague demanding you work overtime without compensation, or a partner dismissing your feelings. These violations can lead to feelings of resentment, anger, anxiety, and burnout. Conversely, consider individuals who consistently struggle with boundaries, leading them to feel overwhelmed, taken advantage of, and perpetually drained. One study in the Journal of Social and Personal Relationships showed that individuals with clear and healthy boundaries reported higher levels of self-esteem and relationship satisfaction. What can be gained? In what areas of your life are your boundaries weakest, and what are the emotional consequences? What boundaries do you need to establish or strengthen in your life? How can you communicate your boundaries effectively without being aggressive or passive-aggressive? What is preventing you from setting appropriate boundaries? As we continue, consider how redefining a trait often seen as negative can unlock a great opportunity. This leads us to redefining selfishness, but let's challenge the almost universally negative connotation of the word. Is it possible that prioritizing one's own well-being, often labeled as selfish, is not only justifiable but essential for personal growth and healthy relationships? Remember Nietzsche's emphasis on self-affirmation and creating one's own values. Consider boundary setting a necessary act of self-preservation, not selfishness. What if selfishness is actually the key to unlocking untapped potential within yourself? Now, consider that healthy self-interest is distinct from narcissism or the exploitation of others. It involves recognizing and prioritizing one's own needs, desires, and values, not at the expense of others, but in a way that supports overall well-being. It encompasses self-care, self-compassion, and the ability to say no to requests that drain our energy or compromise our values. All too often, people neglect their own needs, sacrificing their well-being for the sake of pleasing others or meeting societal expectations. But what would it look like to fill your own cup first? Consider examples of how prioritizing one's own well-being can lead to positive outcomes, such as improved relationships, increased productivity, and greater overall happiness. Think of individuals who have transformed their lives by embracing healthy selfishness, setting boundaries, and prioritizing their own needs. Research in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology suggests that individuals who practice self-compassion and engage in self-care activities report lower levels of stress, anxiety, and depression. What do the best boundaries look like? What activities or practices do you need to prioritize in order to nurture your own well-being? How can you overcome the guilt associated with saying no to others and prioritize your own needs without feeling selfish? How can you become healthier by being selfish? As we approach our conclusion, consider how this all comes together. There's much more ahead. As we continue, let's transition to the path forward, understanding that managing anger and prioritizing well-being is not a destination, but a continuous journey requiring ongoing effort and self-reflection. The question posed at the beginning of this video is anger inherently destructive, or can it be a misunderstood force? Has been answered at least in part by this exploration. Yet the answer depends on the ongoing work. So, what steps can we take to ensure the transformation continues? Consider that sustaining transformation involves developing sustainable practices for managing anger and prioritizing well-being, which requires ongoing self-reflection, seeking support when needed, and adapting strategies as life changes. Maintaining momentum can be difficult, but it involves ongoing self-assessment and flexibility. Consider individuals who have successfully sustained their transformation over the long term, continually adapting their strategies and seeking support when needed. Experts advise building sustainable habits for mental and emotional well-being, but what does this look like long-term? Consider the stories of individuals who have successfully maintained positive change over time. These people often have robust support networks, self-care routines, and consistent self-reflection. In contrast, think of the many who have stalled and relapse after an initial period of change. What went wrong? What strategies can be put in place to prevent relapse and maintain momentum? How can anger become a catalyst for change? Ask yourself this: what steps will you take to sustain your transformation and continue growing? How will you use anger as a catalyst for positive change in your life and in the world around you? How can you avoid the pitfalls described earlier? Now stay with me, because as we reach our conclusion, we will offer a final, profound insight into the nature of anger and its potential for personal growth. Now, let's consider that while identifying ressentiment and its sources is a crucial first step, is it truly enough to simply understand the roots of your anger? Or must we take active measures, grounded in Nietzschean self-mastery, to channel that potent energy constructively? To merely diagnose the problem is insufficient. The power lies in actively transforming that understanding into tangible change. These strategies aren't about suppressing anger, forcing it down, or pretending it doesn't exist. Instead, they're about acknowledging its presence, understanding its energy, and deliberately redirecting it towards self-defined goals that align with your values. Think of anger as a river. You can either let it flood and destroy everything in its path, or you can build a dam and harness its power for energy. This is active transformation, and it begins with understanding that you have the power to choose. This is the will to power in action, taking the raw energy of emotion and shaping it to your own ends. We will explore journaling as a form of self-reflection, creative expression as a means of emotional release, physical activity for stress reduction, and assertiveness training to establish healthy boundaries. Each of these techniques offers a new opportunity, not a suppression method. Let's start with journaling. Beyond just writing down your thoughts, journaling becomes a powerful tool for identifying anger triggers and gaining self-awareness when guided by specific prompts rooted in Nietzschean thought. Consider prompts like, what values are being violated when I feel this anger? This encourages a revaluation of values, a core Nietzschean concept. Or, what limitations am I imposing on myself that fuel this anger? This connects to the idea of self-overcoming. The very act of writing can be cathartic, releasing pent-up emotions in a safe and constructive space. Studies have shown that expressive writing can reduce stress hormones and improve emotional regulation, according to research published in the Journal of Consulting and Clinical Psychology. For example, journaling may help someone recognize a pattern of anger triggered by feeling undervalued at work. They can then consciously act to alter this trigger. But how is journaling more than just writing? Now let's explore creative expression. Consider that art in all its forms provides an unparalleled outlet for channeling intense emotions like anger. Painting, music, writing, sculpting, these become conduits for transforming raw emotion into something beautiful, meaningful, or at least understood. Think about Beethoven, who channeled his frustration with his encroaching deafness into some of the most powerful music ever composed. Or consider Frida Kahlo, who transformed the pain of her physical ailments and tumultuous relationships into striking and deeply personal paintings. By externalizing anger through art, you gain distance from it, allowing you to observe it, understand it, and ultimately master it. This is the will to power expressed through creative force, shaping the internal landscape into an external creation. What if your outlet hasn't been invented yet? Physical activity is another powerful tool. Isn't it interesting how physical exertion can act as a valve, releasing pent-up stress and anger? Consider that when you engage in physical activity, your body releases endorphins, natural mood boosters that counteract the effects of stress hormones like cortisol. Furthermore, physical activity provides a healthy distraction from ruminating thoughts and negative emotions. It also provides a sense of accomplishment and control. The type of physical activity is less important than the consistency with which you engage in it. This could be anything from running or weightlifting to yoga or even gardening. Studies have demonstrated that regular exercise can be as effective as medication in treating mild to moderate depression and anxiety, conditions often linked to suppressed anger, according to the American Journal of Preventive Medicine. This is self-overcoming manifested in the physical realm, pushing your body and mind beyond perceived limitations. How much is enough? Let's now consider assertiveness training. How often do we find ourselves in situations where we suppress our anger simply because we fear confrontation or disapproval? This is where assertiveness training comes in. Assertiveness is not aggression. It's the ability to communicate your needs and boundaries clearly and respectfully. It involves standing up for yourself without violating the rights of others. Learning to say no without guilt, expressing your opinions without fear, and setting clear boundaries are all essential components of assertiveness. For instance, instead of passively agreeing to take on extra work that leaves you feeling resentful, you learn to assertively decline, explaining your limitations and suggesting alternative solutions. This is claiming your power, setting boundaries that define your individual space, and refusing to be a victim of circumstance. Each of these strategies, from journaling to assertiveness training, can help you break free from cycles of ressentiment and empower you to take control of your life. The energy of anger is translated into self-understanding through journaling, into creative expression through art, into physical strength through exercise, and into healthy relationships through assertiveness. The choice ultimately is yours. Which of these strategies resonates most strongly with you? How can you incorporate them into your daily routine starting today? Remember Nietzsche's words, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." Now, stay with me. Implementing these strategies is not always easy, and challenges and setbacks are inevitable. We must understand that the journey of self-improvement is not a linear one, and there will be times when you stumble or feel discouraged. So, what steps can you take to overcome these challenges and maintain momentum on the path to self-mastery? In the next section, we'll delve into the strategies for overcoming challenges and embracing the struggles that truly create change. So, you've been diligently journaling, practicing assertiveness, and maybe even hitting the gym to channel your anger. But what happens when you still find yourself erupting in frustration, when the techniques you've been taught feel as effective as shouting into the void? How do you avoid the crushing discouragement when your efforts to manage anger seem utterly ineffective and progress feels like an illusion? Let's be honest, the journey to self-mastery is rarely a straight line, and it's easy to feel as though the tools simply don't work, that all this effort is for nothing. This is where Nietzsche's concept of amor fati, the love of fate, becomes essential. What this means is embracing everything that life throws your way, the good, the bad, and especially the seemingly unbearable. Think of it not as passive acceptance, but as active affirmation, a conscious decision to see every challenge, every setback, every eruption of anger as an opportunity for growth and self-discovery. It's about recognizing that these struggles are not obstacles on the path, but rather the very path itself. Without challenges, there is no need to adapt, to innovate, to become something more than you were before. Resilience, the ability to bounce back from adversity, becomes not just a desirable trait, but a fundamental requirement for self-overcoming. It's the understanding that the will to power, the drive to expand one's capacities, is forged in the fires of adversity, each failure a lesson, each setback a chance to refine your approach. This is a concept to be constantly mindful of. For example, consider the case of Nelson Mandela. He spent 27 years in prison, unjustly imprisoned for fighting against apartheid. Yet, instead of allowing his anger and resentment to consume him, he used that time to deepen his understanding of himself and his oppressors. When he finally emerged from prison, he was not a broken man seeking revenge, but a leader filled with compassion and forgiveness, ready to guide his nation towards reconciliation. His decades of struggle, rather than diminishing him, forged him into a figure of unparalleled moral authority. On the other hand, imagine if Mandela had succumbed to bitterness and rage. He could have emerged from prison seeking vengeance, igniting a bloody civil war and plunging South Africa into chaos. The fact that he chose the path of forgiveness and reconciliation is a testament to his extraordinary resilience and his ability to embrace the struggle as an opportunity for self-overcoming. Or, think of someone who initially failed at assertiveness training. They might have tried to express their needs clearly but were met with resistance or even ridicule. It would be easy to give up, to revert to passive-aggressive behavior or explosive outbursts. However, someone embracing amor fati would see this setback as valuable feedback. They might adjust their communication style, seek guidance from a therapist, or simply practice self-compassion, recognizing that learning to assert oneself is a process, not an overnight transformation. According to research published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, individuals with a strong growth mindset, who believe that their abilities can be developed through dedication and hard work, are more likely to persevere in the face of challenges and setbacks. What does amor fati truly look like in practice? How can setbacks be reframed as opportunities for growth, rather than evidence of failure? How can we cultivate self-compassion and resilience in the face of seemingly insurmountable challenges? Embracing the struggle is not about ignoring the pain or pretending that anger doesn't exist. It's about acknowledging the reality of your emotions, understanding their source, and choosing how to respond. The key is to view yourself with compassion. It means recognizing that setbacks are inevitable and that progress is not always linear. And remember, embracing the struggle circles back to the will to power, the constant drive to overcome obstacles, to learn and grow from our experiences, and to become the best version of ourselves. It's not about achieving perfection, it's about embracing the journey with all its twists, turns, and unexpected detours. Have you ever noticed the most successful people are the ones who have failed the most? What does that tell you? Self-compassion is key to this process, even when anger is justified. But how do we reduce guilt and shame around not being perfect, around not mastering these techniques overnight? How can we set realistic expectations that prevent us from spiraling into self-recrimination? We must understand that the path to managing anger is paved with forgiveness, especially self-forgiveness, and that the expectation of perfection is the enemy of progress. In the next section, we'll explore ways to cultivate self-forgiveness and to set realistic expectations, preventing you from falling into the trap of thinking you must become an emotionless robot, devoid of all negative feelings. So, you're striving to manage your anger, pouring effort into self-improvement, yet still fall short of your expectations. Are you then consumed by self-criticism, convinced that you're simply not good enough, not disciplined enough, not capable of mastering your emotions? It's easy to fall into the trap of believing you should be in constant control, a paragon of emotional regulation. But this ideal is not only unrealistic, it's often counterproductive. We previously explored how overcoming challenges is integral to personal growth, and now, we turn to a vital component that allows us to navigate setbacks: self-compassion. Reintroducing Nietzsche's concept of the will to power, it's essential to understand that true strength lies not in punishing yourself for failures, but in accepting them as opportunities for growth. But how can we be strong for ourselves when we fail? Self-compassion is essentially treating yourself with the same kindness, care, and understanding you would offer a friend who is facing similar struggles. Imagine a close friend confiding in you about an anger outburst they regret. Would you berate them, call them a failure, or tell them they're hopeless? Probably not. You'd likely offer a listening ear, words of comfort, and gentle encouragement. Self-compassion asks you to extend that same grace to yourself. It comprises three key elements: self-kindness, which involves replacing self-judgment with understanding. Common humanity, acknowledging that suffering and imperfection are part of the shared human experience, not signs of personal deficiency. And mindfulness, observing your thoughts and feelings without over-identifying with them or getting swept away by negative emotions. It's vital to differentiate self-compassion from self-pity, which dwells on suffering and fosters a sense of helplessness, and from self-esteem, which is contingent on external validation and achievement. Self-compassion isn't about feeling sorry for yourself. It's about recognizing your inherent worth and treating yourself with the respect you deserve, regardless of your perceived flaws or failures. Research consistently demonstrates the profound psychological benefits of self-compassion. Studies published in the Journal of Research in Personality have shown that individuals with higher levels of self-compassion experience reduced anxiety, depression, and stress. They are also more resilient in the face of adversity, better able to cope with challenges, and more likely to engage in healthy behaviors. For example, imagine two individuals who both struggle with anger management. One responds to an outburst with harsh self-criticism, berating themselves for their lack of control and spiraling into shame and despair. They may then become avoidant, suppressing their emotions and further fueling their anger. The other person, however, responds with self-compassion, acknowledging their mistake without judgment, recognizing that everyone struggles with anger at times, and using the experience as an opportunity to learn and grow. This person is more likely to develop more effective coping strategies and maintain momentum on their path to self-improvement. Think about the first person succumbing to ressentiment and the second person embracing the will to power. Consider someone who forgave themselves for an anger outburst. They might have realized they were overly tired and stressed, leading to a shorter fuse. By acknowledging this without self-blame, they could then prioritize getting more rest and practicing stress reduction techniques, thus preventing future outbursts. Each component plays a vital role. Self-kindness allows you to approach your anger with understanding. Common humanity reminds you that you're not alone in your struggles, and mindfulness helps you observe your emotions without getting overwhelmed by them. So, how can self-compassion help you break free from cycles of self-blame and shame, allowing you to approach your anger with greater understanding and acceptance? When you make a mistake, do you typically respond to yourself with harsh criticism or gentle understanding? What would it look like to treat yourself with more kindness and compassion in those moments? What internal resistance do you have to providing yourself with self-compassion? It might feel selfish, indulgent, or like you're letting yourself off the hook. But self-compassion is not about excusing harmful behavior. It's about creating space for growth and change. It's about recognizing that you are worthy of love and understanding, even when you fall short of your ideals. Let's tie this back to Nietzsche. Amor fati is not about passively accepting your flaws. It's about actively loving them as part of your unique journey to becoming the Übermensch, the self-overcoming individual. It's not about being perfect, but about embracing your imperfections as fuel for your growth. But self-compassion is not about excusing harmful behavior. It's about creating space for growth and change, but that's a difficult line to walk. Some viewers may struggle with the idea of self-compassion, worrying that it will lead to complacency or a lack of accountability. It's important to address this concern because it's valid, and this brings us to a crucial distinction, that of healthy guilt versus toxic shame. In the next section, we'll explore how to recognize the difference between these two emotions and how self-compassion allows you to experience healthy guilt without spiraling into the destructive abyss of shame. Is guilt always a negative emotion? Is all remorse detrimental? We naturally assume that feelings of guilt are inherently bad, something to be avoided at all costs. But what if guilt, in its healthy form, could actually be a powerful catalyst for positive change? Self-compassion allows us to experience healthy guilt without spiraling into shame, but to understand why, we must first recognize the crucial distinction between the two. But how do you know when you've truly acted against your values? Healthy guilt is a feeling of remorse for specific actions that violate one's values or harm others. It focuses on what you did, not who you are. For example, if you lash out in anger at a loved one, you might feel guilty for your behavior, recognizing that you acted in a way that was inconsistent with your values of kindness and respect. This guilt can then motivate you to apologize, make amends, and strive to act differently in the future. Toxic shame, on the other hand, is a pervasive feeling of worthlessness and inadequacy that stems from a belief that one is fundamentally flawed. It focuses on who you are, the belief that you are inherently bad, unlovable, or incapable of change. While guilt says, "I did something bad," shame whispers, "I am bad." Shame can lead to defensiveness, denial, and further harmful behavior as you try to protect yourself from the pain of feeling inadequate. Healthy guilt, conversely, motivates positive change, prompting you to take responsibility for your actions and make amends. Consider, for instance, someone who consistently avoids taking responsibility for their actions, blaming others for their mistakes, and refusing to acknowledge the harm they've caused. This person likely struggles with toxic shame and is desperately trying to protect themselves from the pain of feeling inadequate. Consider the story of a person who caused a car accident due to reckless driving. Someone experiencing healthy guilt would acknowledge their mistake, take responsibility for the damage they caused, and strive to be a more careful driver in the future. Someone experiencing toxic shame, however, might deny their responsibility, blame the other driver, and continue to engage in reckless behavior, fueled by a deep-seated belief that they are inherently bad and incapable of change. Or contrast those who do not experience guilt. Studies on sociopaths reveal a lack of empathy and remorse, often leading to a disregard for the well-being of others, and a pattern of manipulative and harmful behavior. They may lie, cheat, and steal without a second thought, feeling no guilt for the pain they inflict. Research in behavioral sciences and the law has consistently demonstrated this lack of guilt as a key characteristic of antisocial personality disorder. How can recognizing the difference between healthy guilt and toxic shame help you manage your anger more effectively and act more honestly and appropriately? How do you typically respond to feelings of guilt or shame? Do you try to suppress them, deny them, or lash out in anger? How can you cultivate healthy guilt and challenge toxic shame, recognizing that you are capable of making mistakes without being fundamentally flawed? How does self-compassion play a role, allowing you to acknowledge your mistakes without spiraling into self-condemnation? This circles back to Nietzsche's revaluation of values. It's about challenging the societal norms that equate guilt with shame, and recognizing that healthy guilt can be a powerful tool for self-improvement. Shame often leads to further suppression and destructive expression of anger, fueling a vicious cycle of negativity. By recognizing the difference, you can break free from this cycle and approach your anger with greater self-awareness and compassion. Even with self-compassion and a healthy understanding of guilt, managing anger can still be a challenging journey. What happens when self-management strategies aren't enough? When do you trust the advice of others over yourself? Some situations may require seeking external support, and it's crucial to recognize when professional help is needed. In the next section, we'll explore the value of seeking external guidance, challenging the stigma associated with therapy and counseling, and empowering you to take that step when it's necessary. Even with self-compassion and a healthy understanding of guilt, and even when heeding expert advice, consistent professional treatment isn't always feasible, is it? Anger management classes can be expensive, and therapy might not be readily accessible due to geographical limitations or long waiting lists. But does that mean you're destined to struggle with anger indefinitely? Of course not. Challenging the notion that professional help is the only path to effective anger management. There's a wealth of resources available that can empower you to take control of your anger management journey. Resourceful self-help involves proactively seeking out alternative resources and strategies for managing anger. Think of it as becoming your own anger management coach, curating a personalized toolkit of techniques and resources that work best for you. This could include books, online courses, support groups, mindfulness apps, or even community workshops. But how do you sift through the vast sea of information to find resources that are credible and effective? One of the most important elements of self-directed learning is skepticism. Look for resources that are evidence-based, meaning they are grounded in scientific research and have been shown to be effective in studies. Be wary of resources that make unsubstantiated claims or promise quick fixes. Check the credentials and expertise of the authors or instructors, and look for reviews or testimonials from other users. Consider the source. Is it a reputable organization or institution, or is it a for-profit company with a vested interest in selling you something? While professional help offers individual guidance, resourceful self-help gives you the power to become self-sufficient, a highly valuable skill in the long run. There are numerous examples of high-quality self-help resources that have been shown to be effective for anger management. For instance, Mind Over Mood by Dennis Greenberger and Christine Paidsky offers a practical guide to cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, techniques for managing emotions, including anger. Online courses such as Demystifying Mindfulness can offer verifiable instruction in mindfulness and meditation. These courses and the insights from Mind Over Mood have shown to significantly reduce stress and anger. Support groups, both in-person and online, can provide a sense of community and shared experience, allowing you to connect with others who are facing similar challenges. When evaluating online courses, look for instructors who are licensed therapists or psychologists, and check the course syllabus to ensure that it covers evidence-based techniques. Success stories abound of individuals who have transformed their anger through these alternative resources. For example, a recent study published in the Journal of Consulting and Clinical Psychology found that participants who completed an online CBT program for anger management experienced a significant reduction in anger outbursts and improved emotional regulation. Think about the empowerment that comes from taking ownership of your healing. Resourceful self-help can empower you to take control of your anger management journey, even when professional help is not an option. What alternative resources are available to you in your community or online? How can you evaluate the credibility and effectiveness of these resources? What small steps can you take today to begin exploring these options? Why is it helpful to pursue these, even if you already have professional assistance? Even if you can afford professional treatment, the insights and skills gained through resourceful self-help can supplement your therapy and accelerate your progress. It can provide you with additional tools and techniques to manage your anger in between sessions and empower you to become a more active participant in your own healing. If you have no access to expert help, you can still pursue freedom from harmful anger. But here's the truth that many anger management programs don't want you to realize. There's no one-size-fits-all approach. You aren't a robot to be reprogrammed. What works for one person may not work for another, and relying solely on one technique or perspective can be limiting. That's why it's crucial to integrate insights from diverse sources, including Nietzschean philosophy, psychological theories, self-help resources, and personal experiences, to create your own personalized anger toolkit. There isn't necessarily one right answer but an appropriate mix. You are an alchemist, Creating your own anger toolkit means synthesizing different perspectives and techniques to develop a personalized approach that aligns with your own values, triggers, and coping styles. Start by identifying your core values. What is most important to you in life? Kindness, respect, honesty, fairness. Your values can serve as a compass, guiding your actions and helping you make choices that are consistent with your authentic self. Next, identify your triggers. What situations, people, or thoughts tend to provoke your anger? Once you know your triggers, you can develop coping strategies to manage them more effectively. This is when Nietzsche's revaluation of values becomes useful, understanding how you weigh values in relation to certain situations. Finally, experiment with different techniques and approaches to find what works best for you. This might include mindfulness meditation, exercise, journaling, creative expression, or assertiveness training. The key is to be open to experimentation and willing to adapt your approach as needed. Consider someone who combines techniques from CBT with Stoicism. CBT might help them identify and challenge negative thought patterns that fuel their anger, while Stoicism might teach them to accept what they cannot control and focus on what they can. Or imagine someone who integrates the lessons from experts with the benefits of self-compassion. They might use expert advice to develop effective coping strategies, while also practicing self-compassion to forgive themselves for their mistakes and learn from their experiences. This integration creates a more robust and well-rounded approach, allowing them to manage their anger more effectively in a variety of situations. Furthermore, research on personalized approaches to mental health has consistently shown that individuals who receive treatment that is tailored to their specific needs and preferences experience better outcomes than those who receive standardized treatment. It has also been shown that the opposite is true, that standardization leads to poor outcomes. Integrating diverse insights empowers you to take ownership of your anger management journey and develop a more nuanced and effective approach. What are your core values, and how do they inform your approach to managing anger? What triggers are most challenging for you, and what coping strategies have you found most effective? How can you adapt existing techniques to better suit your individual needs? This circles back to the revaluation of values. By consciously examining your values and aligning your actions with them, you can create a life that is more meaningful and fulfilling. This sense of purpose can then help you manage your anger more effectively, as you are less likely to be triggered by situations that you perceive as threatening or unfair. But it takes consistent awareness to improve over time. Continuous self-reflection is essential for maintaining and refining your anger toolkit, as your needs and circumstances change over time. And one of the most powerful tools for self-reflection is mindful self-observation. But what if your emotions take you by surprise, bubbling up from the depths before you even realize what's happening? Many people who explode in anger often state, "I didn't feel anything, then suddenly I was angry." How do you preempt such explosions? Mindful self-observation involves consciously monitoring your thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations to identify early warning signs of anger before it escalates. Mindfulness, in this context, means paying attention to the present moment without judgment. It's about noticing your thoughts and feelings as they arise, without getting carried away by them. Imagine a wave washing over you. You can observe the wave without being swept away by it. Similarly, you can observe your emotions without being consumed by them. One of the best ways to implement this is by journaling. What happened during a flash of anger? What did you feel? Where were you? Who were you with? What was the context? What was said? This type of journaling is often more useful than meditation, as there is an artifact for you to review and reflect upon. One practical technique for practicing mindful self-observation is the body scan meditation. This involves systematically focusing your attention on different parts of your body, noticing any sensations that are present, such as tension, heat, or tingling. By regularly practicing body scan meditations, you can become more attuned to the physical sensations that often accompany anger, such as a clenched jaw, a racing heart, or a flushed face. Another technique is mindful breathing exercises, which involve focusing your attention on the breath, noticing the rise and fall of your chest or abdomen. This can help you anchor yourself in the present moment and interrupt the cycle of escalating anger. When you find yourself in a situation that typically triggers your anger, take a few deep breaths and consciously observe your thoughts and feelings without judgment. This is vastly different from an emotion versus a reaction. An emotion is the brief chemical and electrical event of a feeling. A reaction is your choice on how to respond. Mindful self-observation can help you interrupt the cycle of anger and make more conscious choices about how to respond. What are your early warning signs of anger? What thoughts or feelings typically precede your anger outbursts? How can you cultivate a more non-reactive stance towards your emotions? What challenges come up when implementing mindfulness? This skill requires practice and patience. It's not about suppressing your emotions. It's about creating space between your emotions and your reactions, allowing you to respond with greater awareness and intention. Each of you has a light inside that wants to be expressed, but the daily challenges we face can sometimes dim that light. Self-awareness is the important tool for brightening that light again. And it's good to know that focusing on negative experiences such as anger is important. We shouldn't spend too much time in that headspace, right? Because while understanding challenges is important, your life shouldn't be driven by challenges. So, how can channeling anger help to shine a light on your inner self? Remind yourself of the goals you want to achieve and keep them in mind. Consider the benefit of focusing on goals and positive reinforcement. It can be easy to lose sight of your goals when you're caught up in the heat of the moment, but by consciously focusing on what you want to achieve, you can reframe your anger as a source of motivation and energy. Instead of letting anger consume you, you can channel it into productive action, such as working towards a goal, standing up for yourself, or advocating for a cause you believe in. To stay positive and focused on growth, maintain what activities are important to you. Ensure that you maintain the mindset that is most useful for long-term adaptation. Cultivate a growth mindset, believing that your abilities and intelligence can be developed through effort and learning. This can help you see challenges as opportunities for growth, rather than as threats to your self-esteem. Also, practice gratitude, focusing on the things you appreciate in your life, such as your relationships, your health, and your accomplishments. This can help you shift your perspective and reduce feelings of anger and resentment. Remember, there is no shame in returning to earlier parts of the journey. Continue to circle back to this video and other resources when you are struggling. And remember that this process is about self-improvement, not achieving perfection. Each viewer should take the advice with a grain of salt and implement what feels right. How can you continue your transformation? What actionable insights can you implement today, right now? But we're just scratching the surface of what there is to know. Because in the next and concluding section, we'll summarize key takeaways and offer a final, profound insight into the nature of anger and its potential for personal growth. We will discuss the ways in which the wisdom of Nietzsche can be wielded to take control of how you feel, act, and change. We've brightened that inner light through self-awareness, maintained a positive focus, and established the importance of self-compassion. But it's easy to feel that understanding is one thing and control is another. Even when you're keenly aware of your anger building, it's like watching a runaway train. You see it coming, but can't stop it. So now that you know how to spot your anger building, how do you stop it? The truth is, mindful self-observation, as powerful as it is only the first step. Awareness without action is like a car without an engine. It looks good, but it won't get you anywhere. The real key lies in transforming that awareness into tangible change, turning insight into action, and preventing that runaway train from ever leaving the station. The goal isn't just to know your anger, but to do something about it. This is where the concept of implementation intentions comes into play. Implementation intentions are specific, predetermined plans that link triggers to coping strategies. Think of them as if-then statements for your mind. The if part identifies the trigger, and the then part specifies the action you'll take. This is vastly different from vague goals such as, "I will be less angry," which are often well-intentioned but lack the specificity needed to be effective. Implementation intentions are concrete plans. For instance, when I feel my face flush during a stressful meeting, I will take 3 deep breaths. Or, if I start to clench my jaw while driving in traffic, I will turn on calming music. What makes implementation intentions so effective? The science lies in their ability to create strong mental associations between triggers and responses, essentially pre-programming your brain to react in a desired way. By consciously linking a specific situation to a specific action, you reduce the need for willpower in the moment, making it more likely that you'll follow through with your coping strategy. We take our mindful self-awareness and combine it with tangible actions to create an anti-anger system. Consider some actionable examples of implementation intentions related to common anger triggers. If traffic jams are a trigger, the intention could be, when I'm stuck in traffic and feel my heart rate increasing, I will listen to an audiobook. For difficult conversations, when I feel myself getting defensive in a conversation, I will actively listen to the other person without interrupting. For frustrating work tasks, when I get stuck on a task and feel my frustration rising, I will take a 5-minute break and stretch. How do you create and refine these implementation intentions? Start by identifying your most common anger triggers through mindful self-observation. Then, brainstorm coping strategies that you find helpful. Finally, create specific if-then statements that link these triggers to your chosen coping strategies. It is worth mentioning that certain individuals may find this technique ineffective due to underlying conditions such as severe anxiety or impulse control disorders. In such cases, professional intervention may be necessary to address the root causes of the anger. However, for many, implementation intentions can be a powerful tool for bridging the gap between self-awareness and tangible change. And it's important to refine your implementation intentions as you go. What works at first might not work in the long run, so be open to adjusting your plans as needed. These intentions proactively manage your anger, empowering you to use this information to act rather than be a victim. What are some concrete implementation intentions you can create to address your most common anger triggers? How can you make these plans as specific and actionable as possible? How will these methods change your future for the better? By transforming self-awareness into tangible change, you're not just understanding your anger, you're actively managing it, paving the way for a more peaceful and fulfilling life. But what happens when, despite your mislaid plans, those intense emotions still manage to overwhelm you, hijacking your ability to think rationally? Implementation intentions are powerful, but they're not foolproof. There will be times when anger escalates rapidly, bypassing your conscious control. So, what do you do then? We must acknowledge that even with the best planning, intense emotions can overwhelm one's ability to act rationally. But it's important to remember that there are techniques for de-escalating emotions in the moment to prevent destructive outbursts. It's about having an emergency toolkit for those times when your anger threatens to spiral out of control. This is where we learn to cool down in the heat of the moment. When anger boils over, it's easy to feel helpless, like you're simply along for the ride. However, you aren't destined to simply ride out intense anger, because several evidence-based de-escalation techniques can help you regain control. These techniques work by disrupting the physical sensations of anger, giving you a chance to regain your composure and think clearly. One of the most effective techniques is deep breathing exercises. When you're angry, your breathing becomes shallow and rapid, fueling the fight-or-flight response. Deep breathing, on the other hand, activates the parasympathetic nervous system, which promotes relaxation and reduces heart rate and blood pressure. Another helpful technique is progressive muscle relaxation. This involves tensing and releasing different muscle groups in your body, which can help to release pent-up tension and promote relaxation. Taking a time out can also be incredibly effective. This involves removing yourself from the situation that's triggering your anger and giving yourself time to calm down. And finally, calming self-talk involves consciously replacing negative and inflammatory thoughts with more positive and rational ones. Let's explore how to put these techniques into practice. For deep breathing, find a quiet place and focus on your breath. Inhale slowly and deeply through your nose, filling your lungs completely. Hold your breath for a few seconds, then exhale slowly through your mouth. Repeat this several times, focusing on the sensation of your breath. For progressive muscle relaxation, start with your toes and work your way up to your head, tensing each muscle group for a few seconds, then releasing. Pay attention to the difference between tension and relaxation. When you're taking a time out, remove yourself from the situation and engage in a calming activity, such as listening to music, reading a book, or taking a walk. For calming self-talk, challenge negative thoughts by asking yourself questions. It is also important to acknowledge that these techniques may be less helpful in situations where you feel physically threatened or unsafe. In such cases, it's important to prioritize your safety and seek help from others. Even if you do everything right, these techniques may fail. De-escalation techniques are powerful tools because they empower you to regain control over your emotions and prevent impulsive reactions. Which of these de-escalation techniques resonate most with you? How can you practice these techniques regularly so that they become automatic responses in moments of intense anger? What resistance do you have towards implementing these techniques? In practicing and mastering these techniques, you'll equip yourself with the tools to effectively take control. But remember, de-escalation techniques are primarily designed for managing anger in the short term, and by themselves, they're band-aids, addressing the symptoms without treating the underlying cause. Over-reliance on these techniques without addressing the root of the problem can lead to a cycle of emotional reactivity and exhaustion. The real key to lasting change lies in building emotional resilience, strengthening your inner foundation so that you're less vulnerable to anger triggers in the first place. Because while de-escalation is important, it is more important to work towards reducing the need for it. Let's explore how you can construct that foundation. What if you could become less reactive, less easily triggered, and less prone to those explosive outbursts of anger? You aren't a helpless victim of your own emotions. Effective anger management requires more than just de-escalation techniques. It also involves building emotional resilience to reduce the frequency and intensity of anger episodes. It's about creating a buffer between you and the world, a space where you can respond with intention rather than react with impulse. Many think that your natural level of emotional reactivity is set in stone, that you are simply stuck with how you are. But I am here to tell you that you are not just what you think. Building emotional resilience involves adopting long-term strategies that promote overall well-being and reduce vulnerability to anger triggers. Regular exercise is a powerful tool for managing stress and improving mood. Physical activity releases endorphins, which have mood-boosting effects, and can also help to reduce muscle tension and promote relaxation. A healthy diet is also essential for emotional well-being. Eating a balanced diet that is rich in fruits, vegetables, and whole grains can provide your brain with the nutrients it needs to function optimally. Sufficient sleep is also critical for emotional regulation. When you're sleep deprived, your brain is less able to regulate emotions, making you more prone to anger and irritability. Stress management techniques such as yoga, meditation, and deep breathing exercises can also help to build emotional resilience. Engaging in meaningful activities that bring you joy and purpose can also buffer you against the negative effects of stress and anger. Remember to be compassionate to yourself when building these habits. There will be days when you slip up, when you skip a workout or eat an unhealthy meal. The key is not to get discouraged, but to simply get back on track the next day. Research consistently demonstrates the profound benefits of these lifestyle factors for mental and emotional health. For instance, studies have shown that regular exercise can reduce symptoms of depression and anxiety, while a healthy diet can improve cognitive function and emotional regulation. A recent study published in the journal Health Psychology found that individuals who practiced mindfulness meditation for just 8 weeks experienced a significant reduction in stress and improved emotional resilience. Countless individuals have successfully reduced their anger levels and improved their overall well-being by adopting healthier lifestyle habits. For example, a man who struggled with chronic anger management issues was able to significantly reduce his outbursts by incorporating regular exercise and a healthy diet into his routine. He found that physical activity helped to release pent-up tension, while a balanced diet provided his brain with the nutrients it needed to regulate his emotions. Dr. Richard Davidson, a renowned neuroscientist at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, has conducted extensive research on the effects of mindfulness meditation on the brain. His findings suggest that regular meditation practice can strengthen the neural pathways associated with emotional regulation and reduce activity in the amygdala, the brain region associated with fear and anger. By building emotional resilience, you create a stronger foundation for managing anger, reducing the need for frequent de-escalation techniques. What lifestyle changes can you make to improve your overall well-being and reduce your vulnerability to anger triggers? What activities or practices bring you joy and help you manage stress? How can building your resilience affect other areas of your life? By prioritizing your physical and emotional well-being, you're not just managing your anger. You're creating a life that is more fulfilling, meaningful, and resilient. But building emotional resilience is an ongoing process that requires commitment and self-care. You aren't going to just wake up one day and be a completely different person. You're not always going to feel motivated to exercise, eat healthy, or practice mindfulness. So, how can you shift your perspective on anger triggers, transforming them from sources of frustration to opportunities for growth? By exploring the role of cognitive reframing in challenging negative thought patterns and changing one's perspective on anger triggers, you can learn to manage anger in a whole new way. Cognitive reframing offers a powerful tool for transforming your relationship with anger by changing the way you think about your triggers. You may be surprised to learn that your thoughts are not always accurate or objective. Negative thought patterns can distort your perception of reality, leading to exaggerated emotional reactions. It's the inner light of mindful self-observation that allows for reframing. Cognitive reframing involves identifying these negative or distorted thoughts and replacing them with more balanced, realistic, and helpful ones. But how exactly does this work in practice? A common cognitive distortion is catastrophizing, which involves exaggerating the potential consequences of a situation. For example, if someone cuts you off in traffic, you might think, "This is going to ruin my entire day." Cognitive reframing would involve challenging this thought by asking yourself, "Is it really true that this will ruin my entire day? What evidence do I have to support that claim? Is there another way to look at this situation?" Another common distortion is overgeneralization, which involves drawing broad conclusions based on a single event. For example, if you have a disagreement with a colleague, you might think, "I always have conflict with my colleagues. I'm just not good at working with people." Cognitive reframing would involve challenging this thought by asking yourself, is it really true that I always have conflict with my colleagues? What evidence do I have to support that claim? Are there any exceptions to this pattern? Personalization involves taking things personally, even when they're not directed at you. If someone is in a bad mood, you might think, they must be angry at me. Let's consider some specific examples. If you're stuck in traffic, instead of thinking, this is going to make me late and ruin my day, you could reframe it as, this is an opportunity to relax and listen to some music or a podcast. If you have a disagreement with a colleague, instead of thinking, they're always criticizing me, you could reframe it as, they probably have good intentions and are just trying to help. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, has been shown to be highly effective for managing anger and other emotional disorders. CBT helps individuals identify and challenge negative thought patterns and develop more adaptive coping strategies. Countless stories exist of people who have transformed their anger by learning to reframe their thoughts. One person, who struggled with explosive anger outbursts, was able to significantly reduce their reactivity by learning to identify and challenge their negative thoughts. They realized that many of their anger outbursts were triggered by distorted thoughts, such as catastrophizing and overgeneralization. By learning to reframe these thoughts, they were able to respond to situations with greater calm and intention. Because you can manage your anger by changing the way you perceive and respond to triggers, this technique is powerful. What negative thoughts typically accompany your anger triggers? How can you challenge these thoughts and replace them with more balanced and realistic ones? What new perspective can you bring to a problematic situation? When the answers to these questions start coming to you, cognitive reframing will give you the tools to reclaim control. But remember, cognitive reframing takes practice and may not always be easy, especially in the heat of the moment. Old thought patterns can be deeply ingrained, and it takes time and effort to replace them with new ones. Even when you know intellectually that a thought is distorted, it can be difficult to challenge it emotionally. So, what do you do when you're struggling to reframe your thoughts on your own? Never hesitate to reach out, because seeking support from others can be invaluable. It's time to consider the benefits of seeking support from others. Close by stating that even with all the information, it's important to remember to love oneself. It's easy to fall into the trap of thinking you should be able to handle everything on your own, as no man is an island. Managing anger is not a solitary endeavor, because it's the connections you have that allow for meaningful existence. You aren't designed to live in isolation, wrestling with your demons in silence. In fact, seeking support and connection from others can be one of the most powerful tools in your anger management journey. Often, those that support you will show self-compassion when support isn't always available. Whether it's friends, family, support groups, or therapists, these connections can be the key to anger management. Sharing your struggles with others can provide emotional validation, reducing feelings of isolation and shame. It can also offer new perspectives and coping strategies that you might not have considered on your own. Building healthy relationships and cultivating a strong social network can provide a buffer against stress and anger, reminding you that you're not alone in your struggles. Having people in your life who care about you and are willing to listen can make all the difference. Consider some specific examples of how seeking support from others can help with anger management. Talking to a trusted friend or family member about your anger triggers and feelings can provide emotional validation and help you feel less alone. Joining a support group for anger management can connect you with others who are facing similar challenges, allowing you to share experiences and learn from each other. Working with a therapist can provide you with personalized guidance and support, helping you to identify the root causes of your anger and develop effective coping strategies. These support groups are often free and easily accessible through a quick search online. Online communities also offer many of the same benefits. Ultimately, building a strong support system can help you manage your anger more effectively and build a greater sense of connection and belonging. How does support help with the feeling of isolation? The presence of others can be a powerful reminder that you're not alone in your struggles, while also fostering a sense of community and shared experience. The other people can see what you may miss. How can you strengthen these relationships and cultivate new connections? Take the time to nurture existing relationships and seek out new connections with people who are supportive and understanding. What are some barriers you have towards creating stronger connections? Acknowledge any fears or anxieties that might be holding you back and take small steps to overcome them. And so, remember that managing anger is a multifaceted process, and it requires a combination of self-awareness, coping strategies, and social support. The journey through the self can be a solitary one, but doesn't have to be traveled alone. By seeking support and connection from others, you can build a stronger foundation for managing your anger and creating a more fulfilling and connected life. So, what profound insights can we draw from all of this about the nature of anger and its potential for personal growth? What will this video have ultimately taught us? What key can Nietzsche's wisdom provide? Stay with me, because what we'll uncover next may be the most important revelation of all. The call to action is coming next. We've learned to manage and de-escalate our anger, built emotional resilience, and reframed our negative thoughts. But what if anger itself isn't always the enemy? What if, instead of being a destructive force to be suppressed, anger could be a vital source of information, a signal pointing us towards something important? Is it possible that the first sign of an injustice is actually the feeling of anger? Anger is often viewed as irrational, a primal emotion that clouds judgment and leads to destructive behavior. However, anger can also be a natural and healthy response to injustice, disrespect, or betrayal. Think of it as your internal defense system, a surge of energy designed to protect you when your boundaries are crossed or your values are violated. When someone treats you unfairly, when you witness injustice towards others, or when your trust is betrayed, anger can be a justified response, a signal that something is wrong. But like any signal, anger must be interpreted correctly. It's crucial to differentiate between anger that is proportionate to the situation and anger that is excessive or misplaced. This is the difference between the moral compass and a broken speedometer. When properly interpreted, this moral compass guides you to take action to self-correct when needed, and when to stand down when action may not be appropriate. The proper interpretation of this signal, like the interpretation of pain, requires careful self-assessment and understanding of context. Just as pain can signal a minor scratch or a serious injury, anger can indicate a minor irritation or a profound injustice. Consider situations where anger serves as a justified response to moral transgressions. Imagine someone consistently belittling your opinions in a group setting, or a friend spreading rumors behind your back, or a stranger who cuts in front of you in line. These situations trigger anger because they violate your sense of respect and fairness, and this anger is a sign that your personal boundaries are being crossed. Envision witnessing someone being discriminated against because of their race, religion, or gender. Your anger in these moments is a reflection of your values, your sense of justice, and your belief in equality. Think about historical figures who channeled their anger into fighting oppression and injustice. Civil rights leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. used their anger at racial segregation and discrimination to fuel their activism, leading to profound social change. Whistleblowers like Edward Snowden expose corruption and wrongdoing, often at great personal risk, driven by their anger at injustice and their commitment to transparency. These individuals listened to their anger and used it to identify and address underlying issues, transforming a destructive emotion into a catalyst for positive change. But even in less extreme and more relatable examples, your anger can serve as a guide, prompting you to reevaluate relationships, set clearer boundaries, or stand up for what you believe in. So, what are the implications of viewing anger as a moral compass? In what situations is anger a sign that your boundaries are being crossed or your values are being violated? How can you use anger to identify and address injustices in your own life and in the world around you? What does this anger ultimately suggest about your values and your sense of self? Importantly, is it always appropriate to act on the feeling of anger, even if it is moral? It's essential to consider that the first flush of anger may not always provide a complete or accurate picture of the situation. You must avoid misinterpreting its message, and remember that anger, even when justified, can be misdirected or disproportionate. It's a tool that must be used with care. Therefore, it's important to carefully consider and reflect before acting on anger, to ensure that your response is aligned with your values and serves the greater good. But knowing what makes you angry is only half the battle. The next step is to manage the intensity of that anger and prevent it from becoming destructive, given that we now have a means to determine what it means. The challenge is not only understanding the message but delivering it appropriately and effectively, because it is not enough to know what you're angry about if you cannot appropriately do something about it. And here's a question that might make you angry. How can you do something about it if you're unable to do so appropriately? We'll be answering that question next. We've established that anger can act as a moral compass, signaling boundary violations and transgressions against our values. But merely feeling that signal isn't enough. The crucial next step is the skillful delivery of anger's message, preventing escalation into destructive behavior. Because what good is a moral compass if you don't know how to read it? This brings us to a crucial question. Now that you know when anger is justified, how do you express it without causing harm? This is where the art of sin, rolled expression, comes in. Controlled expression isn't about suppressing the feeling of anger itself. It's about consciously managing how that anger is communicated. It's vital to distinguish between feeling anger, a natural and often unavoidable emotion, and acting out in anger, which is a choice with potentially damaging consequences. The path to empowerment lies in taking responsibility for how your anger manifests. This means validating your own anger, acknowledging its legitimacy as a signal, while simultaneously taking responsibility for its expression, which requires understanding how to express anger in a controlled manner. This means having self-awareness, intentional pause, and clear, assertive communication. Let's break down these core components of controlled expression. First, there's self-awareness of rising anger. This involves connecting with the mindful self-observation we discussed earlier, noticing the physical and emotional cues that indicate your anger is escalating. Is your heart racing? Are your muscles tensing? Are you starting to breathe faster? Recognizing these early warning signs allows you to intervene before you reach a boiling point. Second, intentional pause. This is the critical space between stimulus and response, where you choose how to react rather than simply reacting. It could be a few deep breaths, a moment of silent reflection, or a brief walk away from the situation. The goal is to create distance between the feeling and the action. Third, clear, assertive communication. This means expressing your needs and boundaries directly, honestly, and respectfully, without resorting to aggression, insults, or passive-aggressive behavior. Assertive communication involves using I statements to express your feelings and needs without blaming or accusing others. For example, instead of saying, "You always interrupt me," you might say, "I feel frustrated when I'm interrupted because I want to share my thoughts." Consider some real-world examples. Uncontrolled anger expression often manifests as yelling, insults, physical aggression, or passive-aggressive behavior. Think of a driver who cuts someone off in traffic and is met with a barrage of honking and shouted obscenities. Or a couple locked in a cycle of constant bickering and name-calling, where every disagreement escalates into a personal attack. This is acting out. Controlled anger expression, on the other hand, involves calmly stating your needs, setting firm boundaries, and expressing disagreement respectfully. Imagine a colleague who consistently takes credit for your ideas. Instead of lashing out in anger, you calmly and assertively explain to your colleague that you need to be recognized for your contributions, and set the expectation that your ideas will be attributed to you in the future. Or consider a parent who, instead of yelling at their child for misbehaving, sits down with them and calmly explains why their behavior is unacceptable and what the consequences will be. This shows that you are in control of your emotions and your expression of those emotions. Researchers have found clear benefits to learning controlled anger. Studies show that individuals who express anger assertively, rather than aggressively or passively, report greater satisfaction in their relationships and lower levels of stress and anxiety. Psychologists emphasize the importance of emotional regulation, which includes the ability to manage and express emotions in a healthy way. Communication specialists highlight the benefits of assertive communication, which can improve conflict resolution, enhance self-esteem, and strengthen interpersonal relationships. Learning to express anger constructively transforms it from a destructive force into a tool for positive change and self-advocacy. It allows you to protect your boundaries, assert your needs, and address injustices in a way that is both effective and respectful. It improves relationships by fostering open and honest communication, reducing conflict and building trust. It enhances your well-being by reducing stress, anxiety, and feelings of resentment. So, how do you typically express your anger? Is it controlled or uncontrolled? What are the consequences of your current anger expression style, both for yourself and for others? What steps can you take to develop more controlled and constructive ways of communicating your anger? How would improved, more controlled expression improve your interpersonal relationships? What would it do for your stress levels and daily peace of mind? These are not easy questions, but here's the twist. Even with the best intentions and the most well-honed skills of controlled expression, the intensity of anger can sometimes be overwhelming. What happens when anger surges so strongly that you feel like you're about to explode, despite your best efforts? What happens when you find yourself in a situation where controlled expression feels impossible, where the beast within is already roaring? How do you tame it then? We'll be addressing that situation next, while also hinting at the means to find the deeper causes for your anger and the reasons for its intensity. We'll be handing you the reins to the raging beast. But here's the twist. Even with the best intentions and the most well-honed skills of controlled expression, anger can sometimes escalate rapidly, overwhelming your ability to think clearly. The idea that you can always be in control is a myth. Is there any technique that can be used to regain control when the fire is already burning? This brings us to the crucial realm of de-escalation techniques, evidence-based methods for cooling down in the heat of the moment and preventing destructive outbursts. These aren't magic wands, but practical tools to help you regain composure when anger threatens to consume you. Think of them as emergency brakes for your emotions. Several proven de-escalation techniques exist, each with its unique mechanism for calming the nervous system. Deep breathing exercises, progressive muscle relaxation, taking a time out, and using calming self-talk can all be effective. Deep breathing, for instance, activates the parasympathetic nervous system, your body's natural relaxation response, slowing heart rate and lowering blood pressure. It's like hitting the reset button on your physiology. Progressive muscle relaxation involves tensing and releasing different muscle groups in your body, which can help to release physical tension associated with anger. Calming self-talk involves using positive and reassuring statements to challenge negative thoughts and emotions. Instead of letting your mind spiral into negativity, you can consciously steer it towards a calmer, more rational place. Now, let's delve deeper into how to practice these techniques effectively. For deep breathing, find a quiet space, close your eyes and inhale deeply through your nose, filling your belly with air. Hold for a few seconds, then exhale slowly through your mouth. Repeat this process several times, focusing on your breath and letting go of any tension. For progressive muscle relaxation, start with your toes and gradually work your way up to your head, tensing each muscle group for a few seconds, then releasing it. Pay attention to the sensation of tension and relaxation as you move through your body. For calming self-talk, prepare a few scripts in advance, such as "I can handle this," "This feeling will pass," or "I'm in control of my reactions." When you feel your anger rising, repeat these scripts to yourself, either silently or aloud. But remember, these aren't magic spells. They are tools to help you regain control. Think of it as trying to stop a speeding car on ice. You need to apply the brakes gently and deliberately, not slam them on and risk losing control altogether. Research consistently demonstrates the effectiveness of these techniques. Studies have shown that deep breathing exercises can significantly reduce stress and anxiety, while progressive muscle relaxation can improve sleep quality and emotional regulation. Calming self-talk has been shown to be effective in managing anger, anxiety, and depression. But you can't use all techniques at every moment, can you? A physical technique may not be ideal when you are trying to appear calm and collected. So, how can these de-escalation techniques empower you to regain control over your emotions and prevent impulsive reactions? By providing you with a toolkit of strategies that you can use in the moment, they give you a sense of agency over your anger. Instead of feeling like a victim of your emotions, you become the master of them. Which of these de-escalation techniques resonate most with you? How can you practice these techniques regularly so that they become automatic responses in moments of intense anger? How can you use your knowledge of Nietzsche to inform your actions and take command of your emotions? Nietzsche advocated for self-mastery, the domination of your emotions, and a rejection of self-pity. But here's the catch. De-escalation techniques are primarily designed for managing anger in the short term. They're like band-aids for a deeper wound. What about addressing the underlying causes of anger and building emotional resilience so that you don't need de-escalation techniques in the first place? What if you didn't need the band-aid at all? This brings us to the importance of building emotional resilience, strengthening your inner foundation so that you are less vulnerable to anger triggers. After all, managing anger effectively requires more than just immediate responses. It also involves reducing the frequency and intensity of anger episodes. The idea that one is simply stuck with their natural level of emotional reactivity is a limiting belief. Regular exercise, a healthy diet, sufficient sleep, stress management techniques, such as yoga and meditation, and engaging in meaningful activities can all contribute to building emotional resilience. These strategies aren't just good for your overall health. They are powerful tools for managing your emotions. Exercise releases endorphins, which have mood-boosting effects. A healthy diet provides your brain with the nutrients it needs to function optimally. Sufficient sleep allows your brain to rest and recharge. Stress management techniques can help you to calm your mind and reduce anxiety. And engaging in meaningful activities gives you a sense of purpose and fulfillment. It's all about increasing agency over your emotions, feeling as though you can respond versus must respond. Now, Let's delve into the research-backed evidence of the benefits of these lifestyle factors. Studies have shown that regular exercise can reduce symptoms of anxiety and depression, while a healthy diet can improve mood and cognitive function. Sufficient sleep has been linked to better emotional regulation and reduced impulsivity. Stress management techniques have been shown to be effective in managing a wide range of mental health conditions. Consider the example of someone who struggled with chronic anger issues and transformed their life by adopting healthier lifestyle habits. By committing to regular exercise, improving their diet, and practicing mindfulness meditation, they were able to significantly reduce their anger levels and improve their overall well-being. But what if you are too tired to build emotional resilience? The tired mind is the devil's playground. So, how can building emotional resilience create a stronger foundation for managing anger, reducing the need for frequent de-escalation techniques? By addressing the underlying causes of anger and strengthening your overall well-being, you become less reactive to triggers and more able to cope with stress in a healthy way. What lifestyle changes can you make to improve your overall well-being and reduce your vulnerability to anger triggers? What activities or practices bring you joy and help you manage stress? Why is the foundation approach of emotional resilience the most powerful path? Nietzsche, once again, offers a clue. The path to the Übermensch, the self-overcoming individual, requires a constant striving for self-improvement, a relentless pursuit of strength and resilience. But here's the challenge. Building emotional resilience is an ongoing process that requires commitment and self-care. It's not a quick fix, but a long-term investment in your well-being. What if your perspective is the root cause? This leads us to the role of cognitive reframing in challenging negative thought patterns and changing your perspective on anger triggers. Is it possible to rewire your brain? We will explore that concept next. Even with emotional resilience and de-escalation techniques, individuals may continue to feel they are subject to the whims of others, constantly being taken advantage of. What if the solution isn't just internal but lies in how we interact with the world around us? This brings us to assertiveness, often misunderstood as aggression, but in reality, a virtue. Assertiveness isn't about bulldozing over others. It's about the courage to stand your ground, to articulate your needs, and to defend your boundaries with unwavering self-respect. Connect this to Nietzsche's emphasis on individual strength, self-affirmation, and the will to power. It is a personal responsibility. Think of anger as a signal, as we discussed earlier, a red flag waving when our boundaries are trampled upon, and we fail to stand our ground. Why is it that we perceive assertiveness as inherently selfish or confrontational when, in fact, it is a moral imperative? Let's define assertiveness. It's the ability to communicate your needs, opinions, and feelings with clarity, honesty, and respect, all without trampling on the rights of others. This isn't about aggression, which seeks to dominate and control, nor is it about passivity, where you sacrifice your own needs to avoid conflict. Assertiveness is the golden mean, the sweet spot between these two extremes. It's about recognizing your inherent worth and acting in accordance with that understanding, advocating for yourself in a healthy and constructive way. Think of it as drawing a clear line in the sand, not with a clenched fist, but with a steady hand and a firm voice. Consider the real-world situations where assertiveness isn't just helpful, but essential. Imagine setting limits with demanding family members who constantly overstep, or negotiating fair treatment in a workplace where you feel undervalued. Or even expressing disagreement with friends without igniting a full-blown conflict, and perhaps most importantly, saying no to requests that drain your time and energy. These aren't acts of aggression. They're acts of self-preservation. Psychologically, assertiveness is a powerhouse. It boosts self-esteem, melts away stress, sharpens communication skills, and strengthens relationships. Research backs this up. Studies consistently show that assertiveness training improves social skills and reduces anxiety. The people who are always walked on versus the ones that can assert themselves consistently show the difference in outcome. Those that are unable to assert themselves face constant pressure, added stress, and potentially open themselves up to health problems. Now let's analyze how assertiveness acts as a constructive valve for managing anger. By setting clear boundaries, you reduce the chances of being taken advantage of or disrespected, the very things that fuel anger. By expressing your needs assertively, you feel empowered, not resentful, which drains the reservoir of pent-up anger. Effective communication helps resolve conflicts constructively, preventing them from escalating into anger-fueled battles. Think of it as building a dam to control the flow of water, preventing a destructive flood. In what situations do you find yourself struggling to assert yourself, and what are the consequences? How drastically would your life change if you could confidently say no more often, setting healthier boundaries? What internal barriers, fear of rejection, crippling guilt hold you back from embracing assertiveness? But here's the challenge. Assertiveness can be difficult, especially when facing challenging circumstances or lingering feelings of victimhood. What if, despite your best efforts, you still feel powerless? This leads us to the next step, transcending victimhood and seizing control of your life, even in the face of adversity, while reinforcing assertiveness as an active ingredient. What if you could rewrite your story? In the next section, we'll explore how to shift from a reactive victim mindset to a proactive mindset, turning past hurts into future strength. And here's a teaser. This involves a radical reevaluation of your relationship with power itself. Stay with me. Even if we've armed ourselves with assertiveness and transcended victimhood, are we truly alone on this journey? It's tempting to believe that personal growth is a solitary pursuit, a lone wolf scaling the mountain of self-mystery. But what if that very belief is a trap, a subtle form of self-sabotage? Even if self-overcoming is the goal, is it ever appropriate to rely on others? We've touched on self-reliance, but now, let's acknowledge its limitations. The truth is, managing anger, like any significant personal transformation, thrives on connection, on the strength we draw from others. It's not a sign of weakness to need help. It's a strategic move, a recognition that we are stronger together. Even the most resilient individuals, the ones who seem to weather any storm, benefit from a support network, a group of people who believe in them, challenge them, and hold them accountable. So, what does this support look like? It's not a monolithic entity, but rather a diverse ecosystem of relationships, each playing a unique role. Friends offering a listening ear, family providing a sense of belonging, support groups normalizing shared experiences, therapists offering specialized tools and guidance. Each component contributes to a stronger, more resilient whole. Think of your support system as a carefully constructed team, each member possessing unique skills and abilities. One friend might be a master of empathy, always ready with a comforting word. Another might be a blunt truth-teller, unafraid to call you out on your blind spots. A therapist, of course, brings professional expertise and objective insights to the table. What unique support does each member of your support system provide? Do you even have one? Let's get specific. Imagine a scenario. You've had a terrible day at work, your boss has been unreasonable, and you're simmering with anger. You could retreat into isolation, replaying the events in your mind and fueling your rage. Or you could reach out to a friend who's a good listener. Just venting your frustrations, having them validated, can diffuse the intensity of the anger. Or maybe you're struggling with a pattern of lashing out at your family. A support group, filled with people who share similar experiences, can provide a safe space to explore these patterns, share coping strategies, and realize you're not alone. Studies have shown that individuals participating in anger management support groups report significantly lower levels of anger and aggression compared to those who attempt to manage their anger in isolation. This isn't just anecdotal. It's scientifically proven. The psychological and emotional benefits of leaning on others are immense. A strong support network bolsters self-worth, combats isolation, broadens perspectives, and equips us with more effective coping mechanisms. Sharing your struggles with others creates a sense of connection and reduces the feeling of being alone in your anger. Hearing how others have navigated similar challenges provides valuable insights and strategies. Think of it as expanding your toolbox, adding new implements and techniques to manage your anger more effectively. What internal beliefs or past experiences prevent you from seeking support? What are the practical obstacles to building a support system? What steps can you take, starting today, to cultivate healthier relationships and build a stronger support network? What qualities should you seek in potential support members? But here's the twist. While support is essential, it's not a one-size-fits-all solution. Not all advice is created equal, and blindly following every suggestion can lead you down the wrong path. This leads us to a critical question. How do you integrate diverse insights, filter through conflicting advice, and create your own, personalized approach to anger management? We're just scratching the surface. The integration of both self-reliance and external support leads us to the importance of thoughtfully integrating diverse perspectives. While seeking help can be incredibly beneficial, blindly accepting every piece of advice can be detrimental. What if you could thoughtfully choose what is best for your situation? Is it possible to combine different perspectives into a single, useful approach? It's time to think of creating a personalized anger toolkit, a collection of techniques, strategies, and resources tailored to your unique needs and preferences. This toolkit isn't something you buy off the shelf. It's something you build, carefully selecting and assembling the tools that resonate with you, discarding the ones that don't. You are the artist, and the tools in your kit are the colors you use to paint your life. Evaluate different approaches from therapy, philosophy, and self-help, taking what resonates and discarding what doesn't. This isn't about passively receiving information. It's about actively curating your own path to self-mastery. Think of it as becoming your own personal chef, experimenting with different ingredients and recipes until you find the combination that nourishes your soul. Why does this method give agency to the individual? And why does it make them more likely to practice these methods? Let's illustrate how this works in practice. Cognitive reframing, a technique from cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, teaches you to challenge and change negative thought patterns. Stoic philosophy, on the other hand, emphasizes acceptance of what you cannot control. Combine these approaches. When faced with a frustrating situation, first, use cognitive reframing to challenge your initial reaction, asking yourself if your thoughts are based on facts or assumptions. Then, employ Stoic principles to accept the things you cannot change, focusing your energy on what you can control your response. Mindfulness techniques, which promote present-moment awareness, can be combined with assertiveness training. Use mindfulness to observe your anger rising, noticing the physical sensations and thoughts that accompany it. Then, use assertiveness skills to communicate your needs and boundaries calmly and respectfully. The combination of different perspectives can be extremely powerful, but only if you know how to use them. Integrating diverse insights empowers you to become an active agent in your own transformation, not a passive recipient of advice. You're not simply following a prescribed path. You're forging your own, based on your own experiences, values, and needs. This is where Nietzsche's concept of revaluation of values becomes particularly relevant. There isn't necessarily a right or wrong path, just your unique journey. What have you learned about yourself through your journey of anger management so far? How can you synthesize these insights into a coherent and personalized approach? How can you test these approaches in real-world situations, and how can you reintegrate based on the results? What benefits can come from following diverse perspectives, and how does it enhance your ability to grow? But self-discovery is a continuous process, not a destination, which makes a solid case for mindful self-observation to continually improve. How can you ensure that you stay on course, constantly refining your approach and adapting to new challenges? In the next section, we'll explore the power of mindful self-observation, a technique that allows you to monitor your internal landscape, identify triggers, and interrupt the cycle of anger before it spirals out of control. Stay with me, because what comes next might just reveal the inner light we've been searching for. Consistent monitoring demands active participation. We have built upon integrated diversity by suggesting that mindful self-observation will help the individual figure out what they are even looking for. What if, without consistent monitoring, you can't tell if your methods are even working? Mindfulness involves paying attention to the present moment without judgment, fully engaging with your current experience. Mindful self-observation takes this a step further, consciously monitoring your thoughts, feelings, and bodily sensations to identify early warning signs of anger, recurring patterns, and specific triggers. This isn't just about noticing the obvious, the clenched fists, the racing heart, but also the subtle cues. The slight furrowing of your brow, the tightening of your jaw, the subtle shift in your thoughts towards negativity. It's about cultivating a non-reactive stance towards your emotions, allowing them to arise and pass without being immediately acted upon, not engaging with them or analyzing them, just observing. Why should you avoid judgment? So, how do you put this into practice? Body scan meditations can help you become more attuned to your physical sensations, noticing subtle changes in tension or discomfort that might signal rising anger. Mindful breathing exercises can help you anchor yourself in the present moment, interrupting the cycle of rumination and reactivity. Journaling prompts can help you explore your thoughts and feelings in a non-judgmental way, identifying recurring patterns and triggers. Imagine this scenario. You are in a meeting and someone makes a comment that you find offensive. Instead of reacting immediately, you take a deep breath and observe your internal state. You notice your heart rate increasing, your face flushing, and a surge of anger rising within you. You resist the urge to interrupt or lash out. Instead, you simply observe these sensations without judgment, acknowledging their presence without getting carried away by them. This pause allows you to respond more thoughtfully and constructively, perhaps by calmly expressing your concerns or setting a boundary. Mindful self-observation helps you interrupt the cycle of anger and make more conscious choices about how to respond. It gives you a moment to pause, to step back from the intensity of your emotions and observe them with clarity and perspective. It's like becoming an observer of your own mind, watching your thoughts and feelings arise and pass like clouds in the sky. How can this lead to more self-control and a more measured response? What are your early warning signs of anger? What thoughts or feelings typically precede your anger outbursts? How can you cultivate a more non-reactive stance towards your emotions? Why is the observer perspective so powerful? But mindful self-observation is a skill that requires practice and patience, not something that can be mastered overnight. There will be days when you feel overwhelmed by your emotions, when you react without thinking, when you slip back into old patterns. Progress is not linear, and setbacks are normal. It's a dance, one that requires constant awareness, but it is through this constant process of refinement that can reveal to you the inner light. We've equipped ourselves with tools, techniques, and a growing understanding of our inner landscape, but let's face a critical challenge. How do we avoid burnout on this journey of self-mystery? It's easy to start strong, fueled by initial enthusiasm, but maintaining that momentum over the long haul requires a strategic approach. We've explored ways to understand and manage our anger, but what about our dedication? How do we ensure that this process doesn't become another abandoned project, another well-intentioned effort that fizzles out before it bears fruit? What if the key is not to climb the mountain in one exhausting push, but to transform it into a series of manageable molehills? This is where the concept of small wins comes into play. Small wins are specific, achievable goals that provide a sense of accomplishment and boost self-efficacy. In other words, they're bite-sized victories that create a positive feedback loop, reinforcing desired behaviors and attitudes. They are less about massive transformations and more about incremental progress. What this means is that consistency is more important than intensity. Think of it like compound interest. 1 penny doubled every day doesn't seem like much at first, but within a month, it turns into millions. Small wins operate on the same principle. But here's the twist. These small wins need to be tailored to your personality. This isn't about lowering the bar so much that you're not challenged. It's about setting the bar at a height that's both attainable and personally meaningful. Can small wins really make that big of a difference? The psychological impact of small wins is profound. Each time you achieve a small goal, you experience a surge of dopamine, a neurotransmitter associated with pleasure and reward. This reinforces the behavior that led to the win, making you more likely to repeat it in the future. Small wins also boost your confidence and self-efficacy, your belief in your ability to succeed. This increased confidence, in turn, fuels further effort and perseverance. It's a virtuous cycle, a self-sustaining engine of progress. Now, let's look at how this plays out in the context of anger management. First, you set a clear goal. Then, you design steps to get there. And finally, reward yourself and remind yourself that you are in control. Why is this sense of control essential to managing your emotions? Instead of aiming for the seemingly impossible goal of never getting angry, try reframing it as reducing the intensity of my anger by 10%. That's a small win. Instead of striving to be always assertive, aim for asserting my needs in one challenging situation per day. Another small win. And instead of trying to eliminate all negative thoughts, focus on identifying and challenging one negative thought per day. See how much more achievable these goals seem. These are not just theoretical concepts. These are practical strategies that can be implemented immediately. Think about it. Nietzsche spoke of the will to power, the fundamental drive to exert control over one's environment and oneself. Even minor domination over your own emotions, consistently applied, can dramatically increase your sense of agency and confidence. Consider the following example. A man with chronic anger problems decides to implement this approach. Initially, he would explode in rage multiple times a day. He sets a small win goal to reduce the intensity of his angry outbursts. He fails initially, but then slowly is able to identify triggers and react in a measured response. Over time, the compounding success of these small wins transforms his behavior and dramatically improves his relationships. The small win strategy isn't just about feeling good. It's about building self-discipline, overcoming procrastination, and creating lasting change. It's easy to get discouraged when faced with a monumental task, to feel overwhelmed by the sheer scope of the challenge. But by breaking it down into smaller, more manageable steps, you can create a sense of momentum and make the journey seem less daunting. The key is consistency. The effects of consistently achieving minor, self-set goals compound over time, leading to significant progress. If, however, you are not consistent, you will fall into old patterns. Like an athlete who trains rigorously, you have to keep showing up to see the results. What does this tell us about the importance of habits in personal growth? So, what are some small, achievable goals you can set for yourself in your anger management journey? How can you track your progress and celebrate your successes, no matter how small they may seem? And how can you reframe your approach to focus on small wins, rather than getting discouraged by setbacks? Think about your daily routine. How can you design your life around the pursuit of these small wins? Let's imagine a hypothetical scenario. You commit to meditating for just 5 minutes each morning to cultivate mindfulness. This small win, consistently achieved, can gradually increase your awareness of your emotions and improve your ability to respond thoughtfully rather than react impulsively. But here's the challenge. What happens when motivation wanes? What do you do when setbacks occur, when you slip back into old patterns, when the path forward seems unclear? Maintaining that initial enthusiasm can be tough, can't it? This leads us to a critical question. How do you cultivate intrinsic motivation and reignite your passion for self-improvement when the initial spark begins to fade? Because, as we'll discover next, there are methods to maintain that winning streak, to keep the momentum going even when the going gets tough. We've navigated the complex terrain of our emotions, practiced assertiveness, constructed robust support systems, and diligently integrated profound insights. But have you ever wondered if this intensive self-work can feel like an endless uphill battle, a journey overly focused on the negative aspects of our being? What if the true purpose of understanding anger isn't simply to eradicate it, but to harness its raw power as a catalyst for self-discovery, illuminating the path to our most authentic selves? Is it possible that what we've always perceived as a bad emotion holds the key to unlocking our full potential? How can anger guide you to become the person you are meant to be, leveraging it to become the best version of yourself? Anger, often misunderstood and vilified, frequently surfaces when our core values are trampled upon, our fundamental needs are neglected, or our authentic selves are stifled beneath layers of societal expectations and personal compromises. Consider anger as an internal compass, pointing towards the discrepancies between our ideal selves and our lived realities. By meticulously examining the source of our anger, we can unearth invaluable insights into our deepest values, the unmet needs that gnaw at our souls, and the suppressed desires that yearn for expression. This process, however, demands unflinching honesty, profound vulnerability, and an unwavering willingness to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves, truths that may challenge our self-image and require us to make difficult choices. Can you distinguish this proactive search for the inner light from merely dwelling on negative thoughts or rehashing past traumas? The critical difference lies in intention and direction. Simply wallowing in anger, replaying past hurts, and indulging in self-pity is akin to wandering aimlessly in a dark forest, with no compass and no destination. Finding your inner light, by contrast, requires a clear sense of purpose, a vision of what you want to become, and a proactive commitment to transforming your anger into a force for positive change. It's about having a clear direction, not just a lack of something. Imagine the difference between wanting to escape a dead-end job versus wanting to pursue your lifelong passion for marine biology. The former is driven by avoidance, while the latter is fueled by aspiration. So, how do you ensure that your exploration of anger leads to self-discovery rather than self-destruction? Consider a few compelling examples. Imagine someone who consistently experiences anger when witnessing social injustice. This anger, rather than being suppressed or expressed through destructive outbursts, can be channeled into a fervent passion for social justice. It might lead them to volunteer for a human rights organization, become an advocate for marginalized communities, or even pursue a career in law or politics to fight for systemic change. Similarly, someone who feels anger at being constantly taken advantage of by others might discover a profound need for greater self-care and learn to establish healthy boundaries. This could involve setting limits on their time and energy, learning to say no to unreasonable requests and prioritizing their own well-being. Or what about the person who feels unfulfilled in their career and experiences chronic anger and resentment? This anger could be a signal that they have a suppressed creative desire yearning to be expressed, leading them to explore painting, writing, music, or any other artistic outlet that brings them joy and fulfillment. These are not mere hypotheticals. They are real-life transformations fueled by the conscious and constructive channeling of anger. Now, let's pause for a moment and consider a more specific case study. Take Sarah, a woman who spent years working in a corporate job that left her feeling drained and uninspired. She often found herself snapping at her family, feeling irritable and resentful towards her colleagues, and generally experiencing a low level of simmering anger. Rather than dismissing these feelings as simply being stressed, she decided to delve deeper into their source. Through journaling, therapy, and honest self-reflection, Sarah realized that her anger stemmed from a profound sense of unfulfillment. She had always dreamed of being a writer, but had suppressed this desire due to fear of failure and societal pressure to pursue a stable career. This realization was a turning point. Sarah started writing in her spare time, joining a writing group, and eventually enrolling in a creative writing course. The more she embraced her creative side, the more her anger dissipated, replaced by a sense of purpose, joy, and fulfillment. Within a few years, she had published her first novel and left her corporate job to pursue her writing career full-time. Sarah's story is a testament to the transformative power of understanding anger and using it as a catalyst for self-discovery. But what psychological or philosophical concepts underpin this transformative process? Philosophically, this process aligns with the concept of self-actualization, popularized by Abraham Maslow. Self-actualization is the realization or fulfillment of one's talents and potentialities, considered as a drive or need present in everyone. Anger, in this context, can be seen as a signal that we are not living in alignment with our true selves, that we are not fully realizing our potential. By understanding and addressing the root causes of our anger, we can move closer to self-actualization and experience a greater sense of meaning and purpose in life. Psychologically, this process resonates with the principles of cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. CBT posits that our thoughts, feelings, and behaviors are interconnected, and that by changing our thoughts, we can change our feelings and behaviors. Understanding the thoughts and beliefs that underlie our anger allows us to challenge them, reframe them, and ultimately transform our emotional responses. Studies have shown that CBT is an effective treatment for anger management issues, as it helps individuals identify and modify the cognitive distortions that contribute to their anger. Now, let me ask you, how can you tell whether you are self-actualizing or simply creating an echo chamber of justification? Understanding anger can help you align your life with your authentic self, leading to greater fulfillment, purpose, and meaning. This alignment can have profound implications for your career choices, your relationships, and your overall life satisfaction. If you're constantly angry at your job, it might be a sign that you're in the wrong field, that your values are not being honored, or that your talents are not being utilized. If you're frequently angry in your relationships, it could indicate that your needs are not being met, that your boundaries are being violated, or that you're not being treated with respect. Addressing these issues requires courage, honesty, and a willingness to make changes, even if those changes are difficult or uncomfortable. What makes you truly angry, and what does that reveal about your values and needs? What aspects of your life are not aligned with your authentic self, and what steps can you take to change that? How can you use the energy of anger to fuel your personal growth and self-discovery? How will these actions change your life? Aligning your life with your true self is not a one-time event, but an ongoing process that requires courage, commitment, and self-compassion. There will be times when you feel lost, confused, or discouraged. There will be setbacks and challenges along the way. But by staying true to your values, honoring your needs, and expressing your authentic self, you can create a life that is both meaningful and fulfilling. And here's the truth. Even with perfect alignment, there will still be challenges. That's what makes life interesting and gives us new, fascinating mountains to climb. But even now, we're just scratching the surface of this fascinating topic. In the next section, we will explore how to integrate these insights into your daily life and create lasting change, even when the storms of life inevitably return. We've explored the depths of our anger, learned to manage it, and even discovered its potential as a catalyst for self-discovery. But is simply knowing your values and needs enough to truly transform your life? Or does the real test lie in something more, in aligning your actions with those deeply held values and needs, finally living your truth? What happens when our carefully constructed inner world collides with the often harsh realities of the external world? Is your outside self truly a reflection of the person you are on the inside? Or is there a chasm between the two? Authenticity at its core is about living in accordance with your true self, even when it's difficult, even when it's unpopular, even when it challenges the status quo. It's about having the courage to stand up for what you believe in, to honor your needs and desires, and to express your unique individuality, regardless of external pressures or expectations. Aligning your actions with authenticity requires self-discipline, a willingness to challenge societal expectations or ingrained habits, and an unwavering commitment to living a life that is true to who you are. The key components of authentic living are self-awareness, knowing your values and needs; self-acceptance, embracing your strengths and weaknesses; self-expression, communicating your thoughts and feelings honestly; and self-responsibility, taking ownership of your choices and actions. How different is this from simply being fake, putting on a mask to please others, or conforming to expectations that don't resonate with your soul? Think about what aligning actions with authenticity might look like in different areas of life. In your career, it might mean choosing a profession that aligns with your passions and values, even if it means sacrificing financial security or social status. Perhaps you've always dreamed of being a teacher, but you were pressured into pursuing a more practical career in finance. Living authentically might mean taking a leap of faith, going back to school, and pursuing your true calling, even if it means starting over. In your relationships, it might mean setting healthy boundaries with toxic family members or friends, even if it means facing conflict or disapproval. Maybe you have a family member who constantly criticizes you or puts you down. Living authentically might mean setting clear boundaries, limiting your contact with them, or even cutting them out of your life altogether, in order to protect your mental and emotional well-being. And in your personal life, it might mean pursuing hobbies or interests that bring you joy and fulfillment, even if they are unconventional or outside your comfort zone. Perhaps you've always wanted to learn how to dance, but you've been too afraid of looking silly. Living authentically might mean signing up for a dance class, embracing your vulnerability, and allowing yourself to experience the joy of movement, regardless of what others might think. But what happens when people consistently fail to align their actions with their authentic selves? What are the consequences of living a life that is out of sync with your inner truth? Burnout, depression, anxiety, and a pervasive sense of emptiness are just some of the potential consequences of living an inauthentic life. When you're constantly suppressing your true self, denying your needs, and compromising your values, you're essentially waging a war against your own soul. This internal conflict can manifest in a variety of ways, from physical ailments to emotional distress. Nietzsche himself wrote extensively about the concept of ressentiment, which he defined as a deep-seated resentment and bitterness that arises from feeling powerless and oppressed. This ressentiment often stems from living an inauthentic life, from feeling unable to express your true self or pursue your desires. Consider the story of a successful lawyer who spent years climbing the corporate ladder, only to realize that he was deeply unhappy. He felt trapped in a life that didn't align with his values, and he longed for something more meaningful. Eventually, he suffered a major health crisis, which forced him to reevaluate his priorities. He quit his job, sold his house, and moved to a small town where he could pursue his passion for writing. It was a difficult decision, but it was the best thing he ever did for his mental and physical well-being. So, what aspects of your life are not currently aligned with your authentic self? What steps can you take to bridge the gap between your values and your actions? What fears or obstacles are preventing you from living more authentically? Aligning actions with authenticity is not a destination, but an ongoing journey, a continuous process of self-reflection, self-discovery, and self-expression. It requires constant vigilance, a willingness to challenge your own assumptions, and the courage to make difficult choices. But what happens when you stumble, when you make mistakes, when you inevitably fall short of your own expectations? Is there ever a wrong action, or is it all just intent? Is perfection even attainable in this pursuit of authenticity? This brings us to a crucial realization. The path to authentic living is paved with imperfections. Given the complexities of life and the inherent human tendency towards imperfection, how can we reconcile the pursuit of authenticity with the reality of our own limitations? Perhaps the key lies not in striving for flawless alignment, but in embracing imperfection as an integral part of the journey, thereby achieving long-term self-acceptance and overall well-being. What if the very notion of constant self-optimization is not only unrealistic, but also counterproductive, leading to unnecessary stress and anxiety? Is it possible that striving for good enough can be more sustainable, more fulfilling, and ultimately more authentic than chasing the unattainable illusion of perfection? Remember our earlier discussions about emotional regulation and anger management. Isn't it inherently unrealistic to expect ourselves to be in complete control of our emotions at all times? Is perfection truly achievable or even desirable? Embracing imperfection means accepting yourself, flaws and all. It means letting go of self-criticism, self-judgment, and the need to meet unrealistic standards. It involves cultivating self-compassion, forgiving yourself for your mistakes, and recognizing that you are a work in progress, constantly learning and growing. This isn't about lowering your standards or settling for mediocrity. It's about shifting your focus from achieving perfection to making progress, from judging yourself harshly to treating yourself with kindness. Self-compassion is the key here, acting like a nurturing caretaker to your own inner child. A growth mindset, as Carol Dweck argues, is also critical. It means believing that your abilities and intelligence can be developed through dedication and hard work. But a growth mindset also means accepting failure as a necessary part of the learning process, viewing mistakes not as a reflection of your worth, but as opportunities for growth. Consider the person who is afraid to try new things because they fear failure. Embracing imperfection might mean taking a leap of faith, trying something new, and accepting that you might not be perfect at it right away. It's about being willing to learn, to grow, and to embrace the journey, even if it's messy and imperfect. But what does self-acceptance really look like in practice? Imagine a world where you accept your physical appearance, regardless of societal beauty standards, recognizing that your body is a vessel that carries you through life, and that its worth is not determined by its shape or size. Or perhaps you acknowledge your limitations, recognizing that you're not good at everything, and that it's okay to ask for help or delegate tasks to others. Accepting your imperfections doesn't mean giving up on self-improvement. It means approaching it with kindness and compassion, rather than self-criticism and judgment. Consider the story of a perfectionistic artist who struggled with constant self-doubt. She was never satisfied with her work, always striving for an unattainable level of perfection. Eventually, she realized that her perfectionism was stifling her creativity, preventing her from taking risks and exploring new ideas. She decided to let go of her need for perfection and embrace the process of creation, allowing herself to make mistakes and experiment with different styles. To her surprise, she found that her work became more authentic, more expressive, and ultimately more fulfilling. This mirrors Nietzsche's concept of amor fati, or love of fate, which involves accepting everything that has happened in your life, both good and bad, as necessary and integral to your personal growth. It's about embracing the totality of your existence, with all its joys and sorrows, triumphs and failures. What are your most common perfectionistic tendencies, and how do they impact your well-being? What small steps can you take to embrace imperfection and cultivate greater self-acceptance? How can you be more compassionate and forgiving towards yourself when you make mistakes or fall short of your goals? How can these actions improve your long-term happiness? Embracing imperfection is an ongoing process, a daily practice of self-compassion, self-forgiveness, and self-acceptance. It requires a willingness to challenge your own beliefs, to question your own assumptions, and to treat yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would offer to a friend. But even with self-acceptance, the sting of anger can still be potent. But how do we transform this energy? In the next section, we will explore how to use anger not to dominate over yourself, but to illuminate your true self, ultimately transforming what you feel and what you do. Are you okay with good enough? How can you make peace with your flaws and wield the powerful tool that is anger? From emotional regulation to assertiveness, from seeking support to practicing self-compassion, from embracing imperfection to living authentically, we've explored a multitude of techniques and perspectives. But how do we integrate all these elements into a cohesive and harmonious whole? What if the key to managing anger effectively lies not in suppressing or eliminating it, but in understanding its role and channeling its energy constructively, weaving it into the very fabric of our being? Can all this come together to create a symphony? I call it the symphony of self. Is it possible that anger, rather than being a discordant note, can actually be a valuable instrument in the orchestra of your life, adding depth, intensity, and passion to the overall composition? If the problem was unleashing the power of your anger at the beginning, how can the power of anger be properly harnessed now? Effectively managing anger is not about denial or suppression, but rather about understanding its purpose and productively channeling its energy. It demands a deep understanding of your triggers, your emotional responses, and your behavioral patterns. It requires accepting that anger is a natural and inevitable part of the human experience, and that it can even be a force for good. Self-expression is key, and if you're feeling creative, you may want to physically conduct this energy as you would a symphony. The conductor directs the energy of the orchestra to the appropriate location in the music, and you are the conductor of your own symphony. However, it's also important to allow other emotions to enter your symphony. Happiness, sadness, grief, and joy all must have a place in the final performance, and it is your duty to find where they go. Consider how anger can fuel passion and creativity, driving social activism and advocacy, protecting boundaries and asserting your needs, and inspiring personal growth and self-transformation. What does this look like in the real world? Think about a painter who channels their anger into creating powerful and evocative works of art, or an activist who transforms their outrage into a passionate fight for social justice, or a survivor who uses their anger to fuel their healing and create a life of strength and resilience. Perhaps you have a friend who was constantly being taken advantage of by others. She learned to harness her anger to protect her boundaries, assert her needs, and create healthier relationships. Or consider the story of a man who felt trapped in a dead-end job. He channeled his anger into starting his own business, creating a life of freedom and fulfillment. These individuals have not eliminated anger from their lives. They've integrated it, using it to create positive change and live more authentically. Nietzsche said, "That which does not kill us makes us stronger," and it seems that using anger to your advantage can be just the thing you need to improve. But what are the implications of integrating anger into your symphony of self? Creating a symphony of self can lead to greater self-acceptance, inner peace, and overall well-being. When you're able to understand, accept, and express your anger in a healthy and constructive way, you're no longer at war with yourself. You're able to embrace all aspects of your being, both light and shadow, and create a life that is both meaningful and fulfilling. This integration can have profound implications for your relationships, your career, and your overall sense of purpose. If you're able to communicate your anger effectively, you can create stronger and more authentic connections with others. If you're able to channel your anger into your work, you can achieve greater success and fulfillment. And if you're able to use your anger as a catalyst for personal growth, you can create a life that is truly aligned with your values and your potential. How will all of this change your life? What is the role of anger in your life, and how can you integrate it more harmoniously into your overall sense of self? What strengths and talents can you unleash by embracing your anger? How can you use anger to create a more meaningful and fulfilling life? How will this new view transform your potential and connect you to Nietzsche's vision of self-overcoming? Managing anger is a journey of self-discovery, self-compassion, and self-expression. The path is not always easy, and there will be times when you feel lost, confused, or discouraged, but the rewards are well worth the effort. By embracing your anger and using it as a force for positive change, you can create a life that is both authentic and fulfilling. As Nietzsche would say, you can become the Übermensch you were always meant to be. In our final section, we will give you the key to creating the symphony that is you. But it involves the use of your inner light, for it will be the guiding beacon. As we reach the end of our exploration into the hidden power of anger, it's time to reflect on the journey we've undertaken together, from the initial assumption that anger is purely destructive to the realization that it can be a catalyst for profound personal growth. It is also important to acknowledge the journey will not simply end here, and you must wield all you learned. In essence, we've challenged the conventional wisdom surrounding anger and discovered its transformative potential. We've learned that anger, far from being inherently negative, can be a powerful source of energy, motivation, and self-awareness. We've also explored practical tools, rooted in Nietzsche's philosophy, for managing and channeling this complex emotion, tools that are within reach of anyone willing to do the work. What's key to remember is that the power of anger can be fully unleashed for self-overcoming. Remember our initial question: is anger inherently destructive? We've now seen that the answer is a resounding no. In fact, when understood and harnessed correctly, anger can be a compass, pointing us towards our deepest values, unmet needs, and unrealized potential. Think back to our discussion of ressentiment, the corrosive bitterness that arises from suppressed anger and unfulfilled desires. By confronting our anger directly, we can break free from the cycle of ressentiment and embark on a path of self-discovery and empowerment. This is where the true power lies. Ultimately, the most profound insight we've uncovered is that embracing anger is about embracing our full selves, shadow and all. It's about acknowledging the totality of our human experience, with all its messy contradictions and uncomfortable emotions. Anger isn't an enemy to be vanquished. It's a messenger, guiding us towards a deeper understanding of who we are and what we're capable of becoming. This is where the initial challenge we discussed can finally be accepted. The implications of this understanding extend far beyond personal growth. When we learn to manage our anger constructively, we improve our relationships, enhance our creativity, and contribute to a more just and compassionate world. Consider the impact on our relationships. When we communicate our anger assertively, rather than aggressively or passively, we create space for authentic connection and mutual understanding. Consider the impact on our work. When we channel our anger into creative endeavors or entrepreneurial pursuits, we unlock new levels of innovation and achievement. Consider the impact on our communities. When we transform our anger into a passionate fight for social justice, we become agents of positive change, inspiring others to join us in building a better future. This is the true legacy we leave behind. Therefore, I implore you to take control of your anger and transform it into a force for good. You are far more powerful than you know, and with effort, self-compassion, and a willingness to embrace your imperfections, you can harness the energy of anger for self-overcoming. Remember that even a single individual, armed with self-awareness and determination, can make a profound difference in the world. Remember that Nietzsche believed you had the power to be great. So, I encourage you to reflect on your personal experiences with anger and to explore the strategies we've discussed in this video. Challenge yourself to apply Nietzsche's principles to your own life and to take one small step each day towards greater self-mastery. Ask yourself these questions. How can I use my anger to fuel my passions and pursue my goals? How can I communicate my anger more effectively in my relationships? How can I transform my anger into a catalyst for positive change in my community? Think about it. Now, what one step will you take? As we conclude, let us remember that anger is not a curse but an opportunity. It is a chance to learn, to grow, and to become the best version of ourselves. It is a path to authenticity, self-discovery, and a more meaningful life. So, embrace your anger, learn from it, and use it to forge a new path, a path of strength, resilience, and self-overcoming. What new path will you forge with your newfound understanding of anger?